Welcome along to a really exciting day for anyone who loves electric vehicles. Welcome along to Tesla's Battery Day. My name is Martin Lee. You'll recognize me if you've seen any of the regular Friday Inside EVs podcasts. To the beneath me, I think, on your screen is our editor-in-chief, John Neff. The first appearance you've made on these podcasts, John. Hopefully the first of many. Welcome along.
Oh, thank you for having me. I love being here.
It's good to have you on. Another familiar face is Kyle, who is from Out of Spec Motoring, but also every video that you see on our channel has had his fingers working furiously on the keyboard editing those. So Kyle, you are, I can see you back at home because you're often on your travels, but you're at home, which is pretty cool. So, and you have a guest there as well. Is that, you going to mention who that is, or is that a top secret?
Yeah, no, Dave might pop in and out. If you guys are familiar with the Tesla that just ran up Pikes Peak, Dave is actually the owner of that car that just set the record up the hill, and he'll be in and out. We're working on editing videos all day today for both our respective channels, and of course, we'll be watching Battery Day together, just having a blast.
And to the top right of your screen is the EV legend that is Tom Mologney. Welcome to the podcast. There's nothing that he hasn't done in an EV. That came out wrong. It looks good on paper. There is nothing he doesn't know about EVs. And he has driven every car and knows them all inside out. And all three of you guys, Tesla owners, as well as I realized looking at my screen.
Yeah.
So,
actually, I have a new Tesla. My second Model 3 right here.
Oh, look at that!
Which I had to get the matching one in the right color. Unfortunately, I could not find it in the store, so like a loser, I had to order it off of eBay.
Well, I've got my Tesla cup here. I've got a Tesla Model 3 battery cell and my Tesla Model 3 hat on the shelf behind my right shoulder. So I'm all ready for this. This is going to be fun.
And let's kick off with one of the things that you think, your personal highlight from today. And it's okay if we all agree. Carl, we'll start with you. What's going to be your personal highlight today from the things that you've heard and the leaks and things like that?
Yeah, well, look, if a Tesla doesn't show up, a Roadster floating mid-air with cold glass thrusters, I'm canceling and going home. I think that's just going to be so cool to see. But seriously, what I'm really excited about is this newer, higher density battery pack architecture, these tabless cells. I'm not sure if they're going to be right on top of current collectors or if we're going to see fuses built into the cells, because somehow you need to protect the cell from the rest of the pack. It could be quite interesting to see what they do.
Okay, Zygmunt in the comments says, will this have the Battery Day live stream also? Well, that's the plan. That's what we hope to do anyway on this stream. So we'll disappear during that. Well, actually, first of all, it's a shareholder meeting, which they're going to stream live, and then it'll be Battery Day, maybe after 1.5, 2 hours. We don't know the exact timing, but we will disappear for that bit. We won't be talking all over that, and then we'll be back afterwards at the end for a bit of wrap up. So leave your comments in. If you're watching this on YouTube, by the way, you can leave your comments in the live chat. We're going to be here in the chat throughout the evening, so you can carry on the chat, but we'll do it on text, and then we'll all be watching together. John, what do you reckon from all the tips that leaks that you've heard? What's your personal highlight going to be?
I have two personal highlights. One, I think that Tesla has to answer Lucid. Even though Lucid's car is not on sale, they came out with a bang with a 517 mile range car, and I think Tesla has to answer that. And I've got my money down on a Cybertruck reservation, so I want to hear Cybertruck news. I want to hear updates and timing on that.
And Tom, what do you reckon?
So a little bit of what both these guys said, but I'm also interested in hearing if Tesla is going to do away with modules and go cell to pack. There's been a lot of talk about that. Elon kind of suggested something earlier this year that modules are useless. And when they started out with the Roadster, they needed them because they needed to swap the modules out as if one of them failed. They went on and did that with the Model S and Model X. Then when the Model 3 and Y come out, now the modules are no longer swappable. So they're kind of an appendage that, they don't need. But how you do that is going to be interesting to hear. I think we're going to hear something along those lines, and that will make the packs significantly cheaper and lighter. There's some thermal management issues. How do you, manage them as well as you do when they're in individual modules? How do you, keep thermal runaway, at bay? But that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm hoping to hear that Tesla's going to be reducing cost and weight by eliminating modules.
The plug seeker who has his own YouTube channel says, "Are you guys playing Battery Day Bingo?" Yeah, we saw that comment before. Order of magnitude: lithium, cobalt, kilowatt hours, and so yeah, there's going to be some Elonisms in there as well. I think there's going to be two parts to. There may be more, but I think there's going to be two tiers of battery talked about, and I think there's going to be what will surprise some people. My prediction is that they'll spend time talking about low energy density lithium-ion phosphate batteries, which they're using in the Standard Range Plus in China. I think they're going to be rolled out to all cars in the US when Giga Berlin opens up. I think those batteries, because they're cobalt-free, that's going to be the spin, or that's going to be the positive news story from it. They do have, is it sort of 140, 130, 140, 150 energy density compared to the bigger batteries, but actually for their entry-level cars, it can reduce the price, and it's a big part of getting more cars on the road and eventually reducing the price further. So I think, and then we'll hear about, as you say, their own cell making technology, which will be the higher energy density stuff in there. So let's just take us back a little bit to explain how we got here today. Now, Tom, you're an expert on the history of Tesla. Am I right in saying that we only have modules in battery packs because that's how the original Teslas were made? They were like, well, we might want to replace some dodgy or some faulty bits, and so we'll make them in modules, and then all these years later, it's almost a legacy problem. Why don't we just put the cells into the battery?
Yes, I believe, that's one of the main reasons. I think a lot of the manufacturers envisioned that if there was a failure within the battery packs, it would be contained to a small module. I know I talked to BMW engineers about this and said, look, we don't want to have to replace a whole pack. We'd love to be able to, we can just pop out a module, pop it back in if it fails, and send the customer along their way. And I think that was the line of thinking with Tesla also. But hey, what happens is, here we are 10 years later into this electric vehicle evolution, revolution, whatever you want to call it. And we're finding out that that doesn't happen often. Like the manufacturers, BMW, I remember talking to the same person at BMW, said when they first designed their cars, they thought that they'd be swapping out modules frequently. They'd fail. Lo and behold, a few years later, they almost never fail. So now all of a sudden, they created this module concept so that they could easily swap them out, and it's not needed. Tesla did that with the Roadster. They designed the Model S and the X to also have these individual modules so they could be swapped out. But also, the other thing that I'd like to hear, if Tesla does go with a module-less pack, was part of it was to contain the problem if there was some kind of thermal runaway or fire. If one individual module had a problem, it would be contained. There was a firewall, 8 or 12 firewalls within every pack. You lose that if now there's no module. So that might be something of a concern. Although, Martin, you've been doing this a long time also. How infrequent is it that we hear that there's a fire in an electric vehicle battery pack? It almost never happens. So maybe that was, over engineering. And now that we've had these vehicles for a long time, hundreds of millions of miles on the road, we realize, hey, maybe we don't need that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, a fire in an EV is a serious issue because batteries have all of the oxygen they need stored within them. So unlike a combustion engine, when it goes wrong, you get that big moment of energy release, and which is very dangerous in one instant. But of course, batteries are much more of and that's what they talk about with thermal runaway, in terms of it happens slowly, and it's more complex. And so, we hear about these fires that happen at scrapyards. And again, that simply can be because the car had an accident and it was safe. And yet, because EVs are still quite new, the recovery truck didn't know how to handle the vehicle. And all of a sudden it gets twisted and the battery pack gets compromised, and that can cause the batteries. And they've got to dunk them in a big container for about 2 days to cool the thing down. But it's so rare, as you say, that actually, it's one of those things that just put the cell straight into the pack and save us all some money. Kyle, you're back in hyper HD vision this time. What did you do?
I know people can see me. Well, I honestly have no idea why I looked. It was Lego World over here, so I upgraded my internet real quick, got the gigabit connection, and now I am back in the 2020s.
So, John, you bought your Tesla, I was going to say recently, but time flies. It probably wasn't recently at all.
Yeah.
Lots of people are talking in the comments about these batteries. If we do go to the cheaper end of the battery the cobalt-free ones, using them everywhere, that it'll reduce the price of the cars. But was the price of the car that much of a deal breaker for you, or did you just really want a Tesla and you did the stretch?
It was more the latter. Really wanted to Tesla, did the stretch, and since then, living with it and realizing the cost savings do add up in terms of gas, in terms of maintenance, and in terms of depreciation. I actually go on to where am I going? Carvana recently, because Carvana has really good trade-in prices. And, checking the trade-in value of my Model 3 every once in a while to see if it's worth upgrading to a Model Y or whatever. And it's holding its value so well that when it comes time to sell it, it is like you're getting it for far less than it appears it will cost on paper. And so I haven't regretted it. And also I wanted to bring up, since this is battery day, I think this plays into it, but I'm watching every EV automaker to see which enters into a new sort of business model with EVs and becomes an actual electric utility, selling electricity back to the grid and using that to subsidize the price of actually buying one of their EVs. I think that is a direction we're going, and I'm curious which automaker is going to get there first, and that could change everything, because that could take even more upfront cost off of the price of an EV, and therefore get way more people interested in EVs, get the demand way up and all of that. But it's this kind of bidirectional power flow and smart management of electricity that some automaker is going to figure out first, and I think have a really big first mover advantage when they do.
Nikhil says, cell to pack is far away unless each cell is protected in a way that is more efficient. I mean, cell-to-pack technology is here. It's been around a long time, just no one's really talked about it. And, kind of now Tesla is raised awareness. Lots of people are learning some new things about batteries. But yeah, like BYD. So BYD have they call it the Blade battery. That's cell-to-pack technology. It's LFP. It's the cobalt-free battery. Of course, BYD, the Chinese company that make a lot of commercial vehicles, but they're putting that into a new minivan that they're using for some kind of ride hailing and stuff over there. So yeah, it's not new, but I agree. Safety should always be. You got a really good point. Safety should always be absolutely paramount. So the home storage thing, it's kind of something that I've thought about and thought, well, I'd love it, but we haven't even got solar on the roof yet, and it's still, even in somewhere like here in the UK that is cloudy 367 days of the year, it's still worthwhile. You still make some decent amounts of electricity, but that home storage is still so expensive. But if I could use the car, well, now you're talking. Especially if I could tell Tesla, actually, you know what, you can use 5% of my battery, or 10, or 50%. Like if I haven't got a journey tomorrow, have as much as you want. Store some renewables in my car. And so they have, of course, their auto bidder AI software. They've now been granted a license to be an electricity provider or producer to feed into the grid in the UK, to Germany. So they're applying for these licenses across Europe. Elon's been seen here looking for land. And now they're not going to be building cars in the UK because of Brexit, and they've got one in Berlin. So that could be an energy play as well. So I do expect something with vehicle to grid related. Today, we heard the news that the megapacks, this is the grid level storage, reduced from $170,000 per pack to $100. Like if you buy 3 or more of them, that's huge discount. No coincidence it's happening today. So what cars are we going to see today then, Tom? What do you reckon? A Roadster, a Semi, a Plaid model? What do you reckon?
Well, Elon's unpredictable, but he's going to pull out the big gun. I think we have to see the Cybertruck and the Roadster. They're the most flashy of the two vehicles, in my opinion. The Semi's awesome, but most people, I think, can't relate to that. They really the Cybertruck and the Roadster really pull it at people's heartstrings. They can buy them, they can own them. At least, if you're super rich, you can buy a Roadster. But most people aren't driving semis. They're excited about what that holds for the future as far as electric transportation. But if it's not sitting in their driveway, they're not going to get that excited about it. But we have to see some more Cybertruck details. I think that's really the big, as far as vehicles. Well, the big play for Elon. But you just never know with the guy. He's a master at these. He's like the next Steve Jobs. It's must see. So this is going to be a super fun day. Circling back a little bit to the vehicle to home that you were just talking about. One of the problems, and it's the future. I agree that 100%. One of the problems we have with that is a lot of the automakers don't want you using your battery to power your home, because they're looking at it and saying, look, we're guaranteeing this. We engineer it to drive the car 100,000 miles, 150,000 miles, whatever the warranty is. If you're now taking your battery and using it for something else to power your house, you've got solar, you're letting the solar fill it up during the day. You come home at night, you plug your car in, you power your house overnight. Now all of a sudden it's a second use. So that's something that the automakers, and I know customers don't care about that. They're going to be like, get over it. It's my battery. I can do what I want with it. But that's going to be a conversation that the manufacturers are going to have. And it's going to affect the warranties. I suspect if you're using your battery to power your home, that there'll be some sort of a warranty exclusion. Like if you cycle it more than 500 times to power something outside of your vehicle, your warranty ends, or something to that effect. And it's only fair that if you're using your battery to do other things with it, the manufacturer shouldn't be the one that it's on their dime. But watch that space. That's going to be interesting.
John, you look after all of our what we do at InsideEVs and all of our sister publications as well. So Motor1.com and Ride Apart and others as well. When was the last time there was carburetor day and spark plug day or diesel day? It doesn't happen. So it's good to have you on the Inside EVs podcast. But genuinely, I'm sort of tongue in cheek, but also when was the last time anyone got this excited about a future technology?
Well, look, every legacy automaker wishes they had the sort of star power that Tesla and Elon Musk does, that sort of Apple magic. Because in the past, automakers all shared the stage at auto shows, and each one was trying to outscreen the other in order to make the biggest news of that day. And the auto show, because of COVID and a lot of other things, are kind of going away. And a lot of automakers are creating their own days like this, their own debut days. And I would say in the last year, the only things that have come close to like a Tesla keynote like this is when the Corvette C8 debuted, the mid-engine Corvette, and that was a year or so ago, or over a year ago. And then the Bronco earlier this year, that was another one. So it takes a model or car with a lot of popularity and a big following to create an event like this. But I mean, Tesla is entirely different. It's the whole brand and the whole personality of Musk. So anytime Tesla says we're going to announce something and it's going to be live streamed like this, you're going to get, it's like they can equal the debut of a Corvette C8 or a Bronco anytime they want, just by saying we have something to say. So yeah, this is the dream for other automakers. They wish they could manufacture this, and I wish I could tell them how, because I could make a lot of money if I could. But they can't. It's just Tesla right now.
T-minus 10 minutes. It's 9.5 minutes to go until the live stream. Lucid was a name that we talked about a lot over the last couple of weeks. Kyle, do you think Elon was watching that presentation and it stung a little bit to only have a slightly bigger battery, but another 105, 110 odd miles? Do you think there's any way that this presentation would have been tweaked at the last minute just for a few extra bits to get back at Lucid in there?
Well, look, we know Elon doesn't like to lose, and so it'll be interesting to see his reaction. Lucid certainly has displayed the best technology that we've seen publicly from a battery electric vehicle manufacturer up to this point. But, and this is a huge but, they are not rolling off the production line right now. It is purely what they've done.
And that's why I think it's okay for Elon to say what I'm going to announce today isn't going to come out until 2022, because what Lucid announced 2 weeks ago isn't going to come out until next year. And that's in the best of circumstances. We don't know if there are going to be delays and stuff like that.
And that's the most expensive. That's $170,000 version is beginning. So the cheapest one won't be until 2022.
Well, keep in mind, Lucid also has another unveil. Is it tomorrow or the next day where they're
Yeah.
going to be dropping their tri-motor version because they haven't shown everything that they are capable of doing yet. So this is, I think, Lucid waiting to see what Tesla does today and then showing how big they need to go in a couple days. They probably have 2 presentations ready. They have one that's like, and then the other one that's like the thing goes to Mars. So we'll see what happens.
And credit should be given to Lucid, I think, because Tesla's been around for a decade now or more, and no automaker has figured out how to out Tesla. And when Lucid unveiled the production Air a few weeks ago, that was the first time I've ever seen an automaker take a page out of Tesla's book and shoot the moon so well and make such an impact. And yes, it's still technically kind of vaporware. It's not being manufactured at scale and all of that. But in terms of following the right playbook, they're only a few pages in, but they have executed perfectly. And I would only give maybe Ford the same amount of credit with like the Mach-E. I think the Mach-E from a legacy automaker has been on paper the most competitive to a Tesla product, but the Lucid, they are doing everything right so far, and they have to keep doing it until they hit production. But man, they're batting 1,000 so far.
John, so let me follow up on that. I had a chance to chat with their CEO, Lucid CEO Peter Rawlinson, and I asked him that exact question. I said, with all these automakers out there, the VW groups, the Toyotas, the Fords, the GMs, they've got war chests that dwarf anything you could ever raise. How is it that you did this? How did you out Tesla? I asked him that. And, he's an industry veteran. He's worked in some of the big OEMs before. And he flat out told me, he said, Tom, it's impossible to happen in those other companies. The only way this is going to happen is from a startup. And he explained some of the things that they did at Lucid and how they, took chances and really pushed the envelope. And he said, you don't understand how many approvals I would have had to have gotten to do this tiny little change, and he said it would have been tied up in months of discussions and board meetings and supplier discussion. Like everybody would have gotten brought in, and at the end they would have said, no, you can't do it. It's impossible. So when you want to talk about Tesla being out Tesla, the only way it's going to happen is this way, is a smart, lean, forward-thinking, brilliant startup is going to do it. We're not going to see this from the GMs, the Fords, the Volkswagens. They're going to make incremental increases and make their vehicles slightly better, slightly better, slightly better. They're never going to take a giant leap forward, and they're going to fail because of that. Some of these companies are going to be out of business by 2030.
To me, I think you're exactly right. And I think the difference between legacy automakers and startups is risk aversion and tolerance of risk. And the interesting thing is that you're seeing startups, Tesla, Lucid, Karma, Rivian, all of these that are taking bold chances in terms of their ideas and their engineering. And you see the OEMs who are very risk averse, who are just playing it safe, using 80% of their batteries, hurting their ranges. These startups are using engineering as a marketing tool. They are going for the big numbers and the impressive capabilities that the OEMs just don't have the guts to match because of that risk aversion. What I think is most interesting now is that the OEMs are pairing up with startups. And what is that going to create in the next year? How are those startups going to affect the OEMs' plans? How are the OEMs going to help the startups? Or is it not going to work? And is it ultimately going to hurt the startups that they decided to pair up with the OEMs? It all are incredibly dramatic questions we don't have the answers to. But again, Lucid's out there. Is Lucid considered unpaired with an automaker? I mean, they're
correct, totally unpaired.
Right, they're still independent, and that's how I feel. I feel like OEMs are going around shopping for startups, and GM had maybe not the unfortunate choice to pick Nikola, and maybe they're wishing they picked Lucid at this point. Like who is gonna pair up with Lucid, or is Lucid gonna be like Tesla and say no? I know what I have, and I'm going to go it alone. I see a path, no matter how narrow, to success, and I don't need an OEM to come here and slow me down.
No, I think Lucid are waiting for that IPO. I think they're investors. Whatever people may think of where that investment came from, I think their investors will want that IPO and to get their money back and a lot more as well. And then after that, we'll see who takes a stake and who needs that that technology transfer. The really interesting thing is as you say, like the OEMs looking at the likes of say the Rimacs, where through the Porsche, the 10% Porsche ownership of Rimac, where the Volkswagen Group will say, actually, there's Bugatti, and you know what? Make them an electric brand, and we need to learn from you. So whether Mate will ever sell his 51%, I don't know, but he's still got control for now, and that's cool. We love that company for still being under the control of one visionary. But at some point, everyone has a payday. At some point, everyone's got a number, and if Volkswagen said,
That's super interesting because I was just talking to a good friend of mine who was head of virtual development at Porsche for like 25 years about this Rimac VW Audi group thing. And we'll save it for our podcast this week. So everyone who's watching, we have a weekly show right on this channel. Make sure you tune in. We'll be talking Volkswagen Audi Group and Rimac and this deal this Friday, as we do every Friday.
So, one of the interesting things people are talking about is a cheaper car. And I think this is one of the dilemmas that we're going to have with Tesla going forward, because Elon definitely wants a cheaper car, definitely wants to sell cars to the mainstream and wants to make them more affordable. Because with all the will in the world, a $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 car is not affordable. Even an entry-level Standard Range Plus Model 3 is not an affordable car. So Elon wants to do that, and Tesla need to do that. At the same time, they've now got companies like Lucid coming in at the top end, nibbling away there. So I think today, hopefully on Battery Day, we are definitely going to see some things that allow price reductions. But at what point did Tesla start swimming in that same pool as cheaper? I don't know. What are the big sellers where you are in the US? The sort of the Civics and Accords. I mean, I presume they're cheaper cars, right? But all of a sudden, you're in a different segment of car then, and a different kind of buyer. And so I think it's going to be a real challenge over the next 3 to 5 years for Tesla. They've got to move, I'm avoiding the phrase down market, more mainstream. They have to do that.
Yeah.
And they have to, but equally there's going to be companies coming along that can just beat them on spec. So they're going to have Elon will want the Roadster to be the, whatever he called it, the ultimate smackdown for combustion cars, the best car ever. Okay, final thoughts, Tom, as we got 50 seconds. If they start on time, looking forward to this.
Yeah, this is awesome. As I mentioned earlier, looking forward to see if they're eliminating modules, see what the new larger battery packs, and also want to hear a lot about their own in-house manufacturing. For the first time, they're going to be going at their own. They're going to keep their partners. That matter of fact, Elon said they're going to increase output from their partners, but also build themselves with the Project Roadrunner. So that's exciting stuff. Can't wait.
Good to have you on for the first time, John. We'll have you back sometime. This has been good fun.
Absolutely. It just takes the right topic to get me on.
And Carl, you'll stick around for the show afterwards as well. Can't wait to analyze this one.
Yeah, we'll do 30 minutes after the show. We'll be here in the comments the entire time. Stick around with us. I'm pretty excited for this.
Okay, so make sure you check out InsideEVs.com tomorrow and over the next coming days and weeks as well. We'll have full analysis, full breakdown. You'll get the news today, but we dig into that as well with our world-class team of writers to tell you what it really means. That's the key sometimes. Anyone can just report the news, but we dig into it. We've got all the right people writing those articles. Check out InsideEVs.com. Make sure it's bookmarked and check in a few times a day. It's always updated as well and always worth checking out the YouTube channel as well. Make sure you hit subscribe on the YouTube channel. If you're new to us, if you're watching, I can see 3,000 people on YouTube streaming us live right now. So if you are new to InsideEVs.com today, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and you can, if you want to, hit the little notifications bell on that. It's been a lot of fun, guys. We are going to leave you with the Tesla broadcast, which looks like it's just starting now. We'll see you afterwards, and this is going to be big time. Well, this is
Yeah,
slow
nothing on
start to
our
the
side. It's all
presentation.
Tesla. They are.
we are.
Come on, Tesla.
Wow. Oh my goodness. I mean, there's going to be millions of people watching this around the world. And James in the comments says someone's getting fired right now. Well, hang on. Hang on a minute. Hang on.
I commented that Lucid hacked Tesla and shut the sound off.
Oh my goodness, that's so funny. Tread says they need to call Apple and ask how to stream an event. Well, look, they've done many live streams before. They're very good at it, but something's gone wrong today. Yeah, we had lots of comments initially from people saying, "Well, guys, turn it up. What are you doing?" And we're like, we're not getting anything from Tesla. And so, well, we'll wait and see. But that's okay. That's okay. We can fill. Where's the boss? Hang on, he's in there somewhere.
There we go.
John.
There's John.
Hey, Johnny's back. Oh my goodness, John, what a start. So this is it's not quite smashing a window with a bowling ball, but it's up there.
Yeah, I've been covering live events for a long time. Like I remember when the iPhone was announced in 2007, and I was working for Autoblog, and Engadget was trying to cover that. And our servers broke because of the rush of traffic from that. But I've rarely seen where the company has the problem and not us. So,
well, I mean,
I
EVs
assumed it was us at first. I was like,
yeah, me too. Yeah,
Martin, get on this really quick.
I was like, what have I done? Like, which one of these buttons do I push to make it happen? Like, what do I do? We all know that EVs are quiet, but it's just a little bit too quiet at the moment. So Justin says Elon is the master of marketing. It's a good way to get attention. I'm not sure this is intentional at the moment, Justin.
the guy broke his own Cybertruck window on stage and turned that into like a huge positive. So nothing tends to stick to Tesla. I don't think an audio issue will ruin the day, but we'll definitely be talking about it.
Wow. Okay, that's a slow start, but it's okay. It's no problem. Lots of people talking in the comments like, "Oh, stock price is going to go down," and that's the thing that we never touched on actually in the pre-show. Elon came out. It was either yesterday, I forget, because like I look at stuff late at night and I forget that's early morning in some places. It was either today or yesterday. Dampening down expectations. Tom, did you see that? What do you reckon he was saying to people? Hey, it's a couple of years away. Slow down.
Yeah, he was definitely managing the expectations. I like to say that, that's smart to do, because if people were expecting like he was going to come out and announce that, starting in January, we've got, there could have been some disappointment. And, this is a long-term play. And what it sounds like some of the biggest announcements he's going to make aren't going to take place for a year or so. And as John mentioned early, that's fine. This is this stuff's hard. And this you don't just develop something and then all of a sudden, start producing it in mass quantities. And what he did say was that, I think it was that they wouldn't be making the batteries in significant amounts until 2022. It's not like they won't be before then introducing whatever this new technology is that he's going to be introducing. It's just that they wouldn't be able to produce it in significant amounts until 2022. So it could be something that, they start producing, but until they have, their gigafactories up and really running in full capacity, they can't produce it in huge amounts.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting, and I thought that today was always going to be about a long-term play. And I found that over the last few weeks, people were getting so hyped up into this kind of fervor about today that it was almost going to be, like how Apple events when the new iPhone. We mentioned that a minute ago with John, and their thing is, and you can buy the new iPad right now. And they they take the site down, and I think lots of people are expecting that with Tesla to be like, here are our new batteries, and they're shipping in the cars right now. And it was never going to be that, was it? It was always going to be a long-term play today.
Automakers never do that, and I so wish they would. I think that's a huge power of Apple, and I'd say of Apple in the past, because Apple now, they don't really do that as much. They're usually saying pre-orders start in a month or so. But I always thought that was a great move by companies that can do that and say, they're available for pre-order now. They'll be delivered in 3 weeks. And automakers I don't think they can do that. The logistics of manufacturing means you couldn't debut a car and surprise anyone and expect to sell it in 3 weeks. You just can't line up those things to make both things happen. But I wish they would. That would be great. So yeah, he was dampening expectations. But you know, when you tell people, oh, here we got a guy on stage.
Okay, let's hope they've turned it on, and let's see. Is the mic on? He says, "Is the mic on?" Let's have a listen.
By thanking you, our shareholders, for your tremendous support over the last year, and especially to those of you who have been with us through our journey over the past 10 years since the company's IPO in 2010. While we have stayed true to our mission of accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy, in many ways, our company has evolved beyond recognition over the past decade, and that is a great thing. In fact, the pace of developments and the evolution of Tesla has further accelerated over the past 15 months since I last addressed you in June of 2019. You'll hear more about many of the specific achievements from Elon later in the agenda, but I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of our Tesla employees across the globe who have done a tremendous job of executing and staying focused on delivering for our customers and shareholders as the world has gone through one of the most challenging periods in our lifetimes. As a board, we have always taken a long-term view. We have made decisions and supported decisions made by the management team that may not have seemed obvious at the time, but are delivering and will continue to deliver breakthrough results. But it's also important to remember why we do this. As a company, we are focused on addressing one of the biggest environmental challenges of our generation: how to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. The last year in particular has seen a tremendous increase in momentum in the movement to sustainable energy from both shareholders and the general public. So in addition to developing amazing clean transportation and energy products, we are doing our part by contributing the right facts and information to this important issue. And we released an extended version of our impact report in April of 2020. In this year's version, we have covered in great detail many areas that are important to our shareholders and our customers alike, such as our environmental impact, greenhouse and other noxious gas elimination, our supply chain efforts, especially in cobalt, and our culture and people focus. We hope that by continuing to put this data out there, we will underscore to the world the importance and impact that we are having as a company. Lastly, continuous feedback and input from our shareholders is essential for us to do our jobs, and I would like to thank you for your support in this regard. Many of you have provided me and the team with ideas and insights that we as a board take into consideration as we evolve our governance and company practices. It's especially crucial to the board members as we pride ourselves in adaptability and the diversity of thought and experience that we collectively represent on the board. This brings me to my final two things today. As today is his last shareholder meeting, on behalf of the board, I would like to sincerely thank Steve Jurvetson for over a decade of service to Tesla, the board, and our shareholders. You will be missed. Finally, I would like to introduce to you our newest member of the board, Hiro Mizuno, who until recently led the largest pension fund in the world. He brings a wealth of experience to the board, but let me hand over to Hiro to say a few words. Hiro.
Thank you, Robin. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Tesla Annual Shareholders Meeting. It is my real pleasure to virtually meet you, Tesla shareholders, people who believe in Tesla's mission and its growth opportunities. I spent all my career in finance and asset management in Tokyo, New York, London, and Silicon Valley. Until recently, I was a chief investment officer of GPIF, $1.5 trillion Japanese public pension fund. And one of my priorities as an investment chief was to promote responsible investments, which aim to make financial returns while pursuing ESG agenda, such as environment and social issues. I believe in the market where ESG is becoming mainstream, purpose or mission-driven businesses will gain long-term investors' support. This is why I was interested in Tesla, where mission is to accelerate the world transition to sustainable energy. I'm very excited to join the Tesla team on the journey and hope to assist Tesla deliver what investors expect by further enhancing its environmental and social impact. Once again, Tesla shareholders, thanks for your support. I'm looking forward to seeing you in person next year. Thank you.
Thanks, Robin and Hiro. I will now call the meeting to order. Please refer to the meeting agenda that has been provided to you and posted also to our virtual meeting site. The time is now 1:49 p.m. Pacific time, and I declare that the polls are now open. We've already received voting proxies from stockholders over the past few weeks, meaning that almost all of the votes that will be counted were already submitted before the meeting. However, if you wish to vote now or to change your prior vote, you may do so through the virtual meeting site. For those that are here in person today, ballots and ballot boxes were available to you at check-in. Tesla's board of directors has appointed Computershare Trust Company to serve as inspector of elections for the meeting. Computershare has taken and signed an oath as inspector of election and has certified that starting on August 13th, 2020, the proxy material or a notice of internet availability of the proxy material were mailed or provided to all Tesla stockholders of record as of July 31, 2020. We have a majority of the outstanding shares represented at the meeting. So I declare that there is now a quorum present and that we may proceed with the meeting. The items on the agenda are as follows. The election of 3 Class 1 directors, Elon Musk, Robin Denholm, and Hiromichi Mizuno, to each serve for a term of 3 years. 2, to approve Tesla's executive compensation on an advisory basis. And 3, to ratify the appointment of PricewaterhouseCoopers, LLP, as Tesla's independent registered public accounting firm for the fiscal year of 2020. Tesla's board has recommended that our stockholders vote for each of the director nominees and for each of those proposals. In addition, we have also received 4 stockholder proposals, as described in the proxy statement. I would like to remind our stockholders that Tesla's board has prepared a statement in opposition to each of these proposals, which appear in the proxy. The first stockholder proposal is an advisory vote regarding paid advertising. Our board has recommended that our stockholders vote against this stockholder proposal. This stockholder proposal comes to us from James Danforth. However, Mr. Danforth has notified us that neither he nor his representative will be presenting the proposal at the meeting today. So we will continue. The second stockholder proposal is an advisory vote regarding simple majority voting in our governing documents. Our board has recommended that our stockholders vote against this stockholder proposal. The proposal comes from James McRitchie, who is on the line to present the proposal today. Mr. McRitchie, I would like to invite you now to present. You'll have 3 minutes.
I'd like to thank the board for holding such an innovative hybrid meeting during these difficult times. Proposal number 5 basically asks for a majority voting standard to amend bylaws. I first introduced a proposal on this subject at the 2014 Tesla meeting. Supermajority provisions are generally used to entrench incumbent directors and managers. Academic research finds that reducing such devices is associated with higher returns. The board's opposition statement argues they tried to adopt a majority standard last year, but shareholders rejected it. However, 99.6% of shares voted for the proposal. Only 0.4% voted against it. The problem was that a little more than 35% of shares went unvoted. The vast majority of retail shareholders often don't bother to vote. Since only 65% of shares were voted, we didn't achieve the 66.67% necessary to overturn the current supermajority bylaw. It appears the proposal failed primarily for 3 reasons. 1, the board put forth less than robust arguments in favor. 2, they added confusion with another proposal to reclassify the board not into a single class, that's the norm, but into 2 classes, elected in alternating years. 3rd, the board also failed to make a substantial effort to solicit votes in favor. Also, please consider this proposal in context with other poor corporate governance provisions at Tesla. First, shareholders can only remove directors for cause. What that basically means is the director has to be caught in criminal activity for shareholders to remove them. Second, because the board is divided into 3 classes, shareholders can only hold individual directors accountable every 3 years. And third, shareholders cannot call special meetings, nor can act by written consent. I hope you will agree. Corporations should not be democratic-free zones. Vote for proposal number 5 so that 33% of shares cannot overrule the wishes of 67%. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McRitchie. We'll now move on to our 3rd stockholder proposal, which is an advisory vote regarding reporting on employee arbitrations. Our board has recommended that our stockholders vote against this stockholder proposal. This proposal comes from NIA Impact Capital, whose representative, Kelly Hall, is on the line to present the proposal today. Ms. Hall, I'd like to invite you to go ahead and present. You'll have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Dr. Kristen Hull, and I'm the founder and CEO of NIA Impact Capital. I formally move Proposal 6. This resolution requests that Tesla's Board of Directors oversee the preparation of a report on the impact of the use of mandatory arbitration on Tesla's employees and on its workplace culture. The report will evaluate the association of Tesla's current use of arbitration with the prevalence of both harassment and discrimination in its workplace, and on employees' ability to seek redress should harassment or discrimination occur. This proposal speaks to the widespread experience of discrimination in the workplace by Black, Latinx, and female employees, despite this discrimination being unlawful under the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Tesla has faced a number of serious allegations of racism and sexism at its Buffalo and Fremont plants. Companies that allow bias, discrimination, and harassment in their workplaces are at risk for unnecessary legal, brand, financial, and human capital issues. Support for this resolution is warranted for the following 5 reasons. 1. Research shows that companies benefit from diverse and inclusive workplaces. 2. Corporate policies that allow harassment and discrimination risk investors' capital. 3. The use of arbitration exposes investors to an unknown level of risk. 4. Broad concerns exist with respect to fair treatment in Tesla workplace, and Tesla employees have alleged harassment and discrimination on the basis of both race and gender. Tesla, a company investors love for its innovation, leadership, and wise moat, is increasingly lagging behind its peers in its disclosure related to workplace diversity, equity, and inclusion. Unlike the forward-thinking and innovation in its extraordinary product lines, Tesla has not shown proactive leadership in building a positive company culture or in addressing concerns about its workplace practices. In these material issues, Tesla lags behind its technology and automotive competitors. The use of arbitration limits employees' remedies for wrongdoing, precludes employees from suing in court, and often keeps underlying facts, misconduct, or case outcomes secret, therefore preventing employees from learning about and acting on shared concerns. Simply stated, arbitration allows bad corporate behavior, like bias, harassment, and discrimination to continue, hidden from employees and investors. To maintain Tesla's wide moat, it is essential that the board seriously assess the implications of the use of arbitration and that Tesla begin to take seriously the need to ensure a fair, equitable, positive, and inclusive workplace. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Our 4th and final proposal is an advisory vote regarding reporting on human rights. Our board has recommended that stockholders vote against this proposal. This proposal comes to us from the Sisters of Good Shepherd, New York Province, whose representative, Terrence Collingsworth, is on the line to present today. Mr. Collingsworth, I would like to invite you to speak now. You have 3 minutes for your proposal.
Thank you. I'm Terry Collingsworth, Executive Director of the International Rights Advocates. I'm here representing the Sisters of Good Shepherd, New York Province, to present item 7 on human rights disclosure, which calls upon Tesla to issue a report to describe board oversight of human rights and its human rights due diligence process, including systems to provide meaningful remedies when human rights impacts occur. Tesla faces serious human rights issues, and failure to establish a culture of respect for human rights will expose Tesla to new liability issues and significant reputational injury, all of which will have a material impact on the company and its shareholders. The need to set a new course for human rights compliance at Tesla is glaring. Here are 5 examples of human rights violations occurring now in Tesla's operations. Racism, sexual harassment, and disregard for human safety and dignity harm workers at the Gigafactory 2 in Buffalo, New York every single day, and those workers urge you to remember their experiences in your vote. Tesla is experiencing serious labor relations issues at its production facilities and is actively discouraging union organizing. Workers are being exposed to COVID-19 and then are facing retaliation when they ask for greater protections. There are numerous worker health and safety violations as well as wage and hour issues. And finally, there are serious, even deadly human rights violations occurring in Tesla's global supply chains. On this last issue, my organization brought the pending suit against Tesla for using cobalt mined in the Democratic Republic of Congo by young children. I personally met young boys who lost limbs or were paralyzed in cobalt tunnel collapses. Tesla sources cobalt from these very mines, and its claim to have, quote, zero tolerance for child labor in its supplier code of conduct is simply not true. Tesla is not only tolerating child labor in its cobalt supply chain, it is tolerating the death and maiming of young child miners. This demonstrates why the company must circle back and begin a process to report on its treatment of human rights issues as requested in this proposal. I think consumers will have zero tolerance for a company that is exposed as being indifferent to killing and maiming child miners. We are hopeful that Tesla's innovative spirit can be brought to bear on making human rights a priority at the company. For example, if Elon Musk cared about implementing a zero-tolerance child labor policy, instead of having a useless paper policy, Tesla could employ satellites or drones at every mine it sources from to actually monitor child labor. I encourage all Tesla shareholders to vote for Item 7, Human Rights Disclosure. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Collinsworth. At this time, I'd like to thank our stockholders for all of their active participation in today's meeting and for those who just presented on the line. I'd also like to read some of the comments that have been submitted by you over the course of the meeting. The first comment comes from Michael Overbaugh. I take great pride in the fact that we haven't had to stoop to the level of what advertising represents to get where we are today. I'd hate to give in to that kind of temptation now when we're so close to becoming a household name that's based solely on our merit alone. But if assets do end up having to be set aside for marketing, I'd like to suggest that rather than shoving ads down the customers' throats, we establish some sort of hardcore nationwide campaign and event with the goal of getting as many people as possible behind the wheel of a Tesla for an introduction drive. It's well known how far just doing that alone goes to converting people into fans. A line I recently ran across says, "You can talk all about the specs as much as you want, but when it comes to buying a car, what ultimately puts butts in seats is the feeling that the vehicle gives you." By demonstrating that Tesla clearly has both the specs and the feeling, what more needs saying? Our second comment comes from the United Steelworkers on behalf of the Clean Air Now Coalition of Western New York by Sabrina Liu. Proposal, and it reads as follows. Proposals 6 and 7, up for vote this year, are the results of widespread concern about mistreatment of Tesla workers at U.S. factories and across the supply chain. It is clear that Tesla is not interested in addressing the harm they have caused to their workers, as their board is advising shareholders to vote against the proposal. We're urging all shareholders to vote in favor of Proposals 6 and 7. And on behalf of our workers at the United Steelworkers here in Western New York, and for Tesla employees across the country and across the global supply chain, while this doesn't repair the harm that's already been caused to countless employees, nor repair harm to children and communities forced into slave labor in the DRC, they represent steps towards a more just workplace at Tesla. This concludes all of the comments. Thank you all for your participation in the comments. We'll now have a final opportunity for any of you to submit proxies in order for them to be counted. So I'll pause and wait for a moment for you to do that. Okay, I declare that the polls are now closed. So based on the proxies that we have previously received, I'd like to announce on a preliminary basis that our stockholders have approved the recommendations of Tesla's board on all agenda items, other than the stockholder proposal for an advisory vote regarding simple majority voting in our governing documents. After the final tabulation is completed, we'll formally announce the results of the voting by filing a Form 8-K with the SEC within 4 business days of today. This now concludes the official business of Tesla's 2020 annual stockholders meeting, which is now adjourned. Next, we will have a company update and a year in review presented by Elon, and then we will start our Battery Day event. During the course of those following sessions, we may discuss our business outlook and make forward-looking statements. Such statements are predictions based on our current expectations. Actual events or results could materially differ due to a number of risks and uncertainties, including those disclosed in our most recent 10-Q filed with the SEC. These forward-looking statements represent our views as of today. They shouldn't be relied on after today, and we disclaim any obligation to update them after today as well. We will now continue with the company update and year in review, and it's my pleasure to introduce Tesla co-founder and CEO, Mr. Elon Musk.
Hey everyone. Well, I mean, this is definitely a new approach. We got the Tesla drive-in movie theater, basically. It's good to see everyone. It's a little hard to read the room with everyone being in cars, but it's it's the only way we could do it. So hopefully it's cool, and hopefully you can hear me. Can you guys hear me? Okay. All right, great. All right, well, thanks for coming. I think it's been an incredible year, and I'd like to thank you for your support through tough times, good times. It's been great. Really appreciate everyone who's put their hard-earned money into Tesla, and I think it's worked out pretty well. This has been a good year, and I think there's many good years to come. So I'll go through the sort of the shareholder presentation, I think, fairly quickly, because the sort of real main event here is Battery Day. So, and really, I'm just going through a recap of what's happened over the past year or so. I think starting from in terms of our ability to create a factory, huge kudos to the Tesla Shanghai team for being able to go from literally a dirt pile to volume production in 15 months. It's like, damn. Yeah. So, and I think something that's really quite noteworthy here is Tesla is the only foreign manufacturer to have 100% owned factory in China. So this is often not well understood or not appreciated, but to have the only 100% owned foreign factory in China is a really big deal, and it's paying huge dividends here. So we really wouldn't have the results that we have had this year without the great efforts of the Tesla China team. So I'm super appreciative of that. And we'll see the Shanghai factory continue to scale quite a bit from where it is right now. I think we really could expect that to be, over time, a factory that produces over 1 million vehicles a year. Yeah, it's cool. So let's see. So we also reached in the past year volume production of the Model Y, and this was the smoothest launch that we've ever had. So I think we're definitely getting better at new vehicle launches and building factories and scaling production. As you've heard me say before, it's the hardest thing is scaling production, especially of a new technology. It's insanely difficult. Making a prototype is relatively easy. And if I think of like what is the real achievement of Tesla in sort of car company terms, it's like it wasn't making sort of exciting prototypes. It was that Tesla was really the first company in about a century in the U.S., the first U.S. company in the U.S. to reach volume production and be sustainably profitable. Like the crazy thing is this has really not happened in 100 years. That's the actual super hard part. And we now have 4 vehicles in volume production, S3XY. So also the toughest joke, I think maybe ever. It was a very difficult joke to make. So we also introduced the lowest cost solar in the US. It's only $1.49 a watt. And we really just simplified the whole chain of the whole value chain. So reduced sales and advertising, got rid of a bunch of unnecessary costs, and really are just relying upon the fact that it's just the lowest cost, most efficient solar in the US, providing both retrofit and the solar glass roof, which I think is a really great product, a hard product to make work, but it will be a major product line in the future. And we also got 4 consecutive quarters of GAAP profitability, which was very difficult. Yeah. So, and certainly a testament to the hard work of people at Tesla. I mean, to do this in extremely difficult times against a wide range of adverse circumstances was insanely hard, but we got it done. So, and I think the future is looking like I think very promising from sort of an annual profitability standpoint. So, in order to achieve, in order to sort of do well financially, you really need economies of scale, and you need ideally the best technology. And I think we've had the best technology for a while, but now we are also achieving economies of scale. So, and we're also rapidly improving autonomy, which is a massive value add to each car. So, you know, I think the value of Tesla is going to be like total, just on the vehicle side, total vehicles produced times the value of autonomy. That's a way to think about the future value of Tesla. We also have consistent free cash flow generation. This is really important for growth. And a key element here is tightening up the time from when a car is ordered to when it is built and delivered. So for a company that's growing rapidly, it's extremely important to tighten the supply chain and to have, from when parts arrive, put it into a car very quickly and deliver the car very quickly to the customer. And if you can do that inside the sort of your kind of payables timeline, then the faster you grow, the more cash you have. Or conversely, if you're unable to do it within your payables timeline, the faster you grow, the less money you will have, which is obviously bad. It's for a capital-intensive situation. So just tightening up and having the parts move very quickly to the factory, put it in a car, get it to a customer, makes a massive difference to cash flow generation. And I mean, that's why it's extremely important to have a factory in each continent. Because if you don't at least have a factory in the continent, it is impossible to achieve this. So having a factory in China that's able to serve China, and then you know, soon many other countries in the region, will be key to us tightening that total sort of chain of cash flow and getting it, essentially the faster we grow, the more cash. This is really important. That's also why it's important to have Giga Berlin complete, because then we'll have a factory in China, a factory in the U.S., and soon a second factory in the U.S. in Austin, and a factory in Europe. And I mean, even if for Giga Texas in Austin, even if we had exactly the same costs as in California, it would still be advantageous to do it there. this is really, our sales, as Al was saying, really grow by word of mouth. So this is really, I think, a very pure, it's very pure in the sense that it's like, it's growing on the basis of existing owners recommending it to other to new customers. This is really, I think, a good way to grow. And then in 2019 we had 50% growth, and I think we'll do really pretty well in 2020. Probably somewhere between 30 to 40% growth, despite a lot of very difficult circumstances. I mean, there's so many, pandemic, wildfires. It's like a whole bunch of difficult production issues. But thanks to the hard work of the Tesla team and a lot of innovative approaches to overcoming issues, we're able to still see significant growth in one of the most difficult, in fact, I say probably the most difficult year of Tesla's existence. So, and we also published our extended impact report. At Tesla, we try very hard to do the right thing. If the right thing does not happen, it's just because we maybe made a mistake or weren't aware of it. But we always try to do the right thing as to the best of our ability. And then we published the extended impact report to show, just a sort of a self-examination of, okay, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? What can we do better in the future? We're definitely trying to accomplish the most good. And so, if we occasionally make a mistake, we work quickly to fix it and do the right thing. So, it's worth looking at like the average life cycle emissions in the U.S. And just how much better a Tesla is or an electric car than any other than any kind of gasoline car. And what we'll talk about in the battery day is also just how much the grids around the world and actually especially in the U.S. are greening. It's actually much faster than I think people realize. The U.S. is moving towards sustainable energy. And so as we move more and more to sustainable energy, then effectively you end up building the solar factories and the car factories themselves with solar. Over time you do, or with sustainable energy. Over time you'll even mine with sustainable energy, and eventually it will get to an effective emissions of 0. So that's where things will end up. Yeah. So we also have safety at the core of our design. The Tesla cars are the safest cars ever designed. We have the lowest probability of injury of any cars ever tested by the U.S. government, and that's just passive safety. When you add active safety into that, it's even better. It's really, if safety is important to you, which obviously it is, the safest car you could drive is a Tesla. So, I think some people aren't aware of this, but it's really, safety is paramount. It is actually the #1 design objective when we build a Tesla is safety. Our factories are also becoming safer, and if you look at the sort of accidents per total vehicle made, it's dramatically better than in the past, and it's already better than industry average, and we're confident we can get it to the best in the auto industry. Autopilot functionality continues to improve, and you can see it in the safety report that we publish every quarter. It's just getting better and better. The U.S. average for collisions is at roughly 2.1 per million miles, and with autopilot engaged, it's 0.3. I mean, this is a profound difference. It really massive, and this will get even better. So we're confident that over time we can get the probability of an accident, especially the probability of injury, to 10 times better than the industry average, like an order of magnitude better. So that's just a lot of lives saved and a lot of injuries avoided. So that's a huge priority for us. On the autopilot front, I think it's kind of hard for people to judge the progress of autopilot. Like I'm driving. I as a matter of course, I've always done this. I drive the bleeding edge alpha build of autopilot, and so I sort of have insight into what is going on. previously, about a couple of years ago, we were kind of stuck in a local maximum. So we were improving, but like the improvements kind of started tailing off and just not getting where they needed to be. I call this sort of getting trapped in a local maximum. And so we had to do a fundamental rewrite of the entire autopilot software stack, and all of the labeling software as well. So we're now labeling in 3D video. So this is hugely different from previously, where we were labeling essentially a bunch of single images from the 8 cameras, and they would be labeled at different times by different people. And some of the labels, you literally can't tell what it is you're labeling. So it basically made it sort of, in some cases, impossible to label, and the labels had a lot of errors. Now, with our new labeling tools, we label it in video. So we actually label entire video segments, and the system, so you get basically a surround video thing to label, and with the surround video and with time. So it's now taking all cameras simultaneously, and looking at how the images change over time and labeling that. And then the sophistication of the neural nets in the car and the overall logic in the car has improved dramatically. I think we'll hopefully release a private beta of Autopilot, or the full self-driving version of Autopilot, in, I think, a month or so. And then people will really understand just the magnitude of the change. It's profound. So, yeah. Anyway, so you'll see it's just like a hell of a step change. But because we had to rewrite everything, labeling software, just the entire code base, it took us quite a while. And the sort of new sort of, I call it like 4D in the sense that it's 3 dimensions plus time. It's just taken us a while to rewrite everything. And so, you'll see what it's like. It's amazing. Yeah, it's just clearly going to work. Tesla core competencies, we've got engineering, obviously, but also manufacturing. I think manufacturing is underappreciated in general, and the difficulty of designing the machine that makes the machine is vastly harder than the machine itself. So, the designing, like making a Model 3 or Model Y or Cybertruck prototype is really quite trivial compared to designing the factory that makes it. Especially if it's new technology and you want to use new manufacturing methods, it's just at least 10 to 100 times harder to do the factory than the prototype. And that's why you see a lot of companies out there or startups, they'll bring out a prototype, but they just can't get it over the hump for manufacturing, because manufacturing of new technology especially is the hardest thing by far. Like basically the prototype is at best 10% of the difficulty and probably closer to 1%. And then software. Tesla is both a hardware and a software company. So a huge percentage of our engineers are actually software engineers. And you can think of our car as kind of like a laptop on wheels. And so software is incredibly important. And so not just in the car, but also in the factory. So the factory software is extremely important. Just software in general. These are fundamental. These are the 3 critical areas that are needed to make for an awesome company. So, yeah. So we have now we'll soon have 3 new factories, incremental, on, well, we have one already, on 3 different continents. Shanghai, we're expanding to Shanghai with the 2nd phase. Berlin is making rapid progress, and Texas is making even faster progress. So, yeah. With each factory, what we're trying to do is also improve the manufacturing technology. So, it's in some cases, like the Model Y made in Berlin might look the same, but it actually is made in a much more efficient way. And yeah, we'll talk about that later in the battery presentation. yeah, launched Megapack. It's a 3 megawatt hours all-in-one energy storage solution. So it's been great overall. Yeah. All right, and I think that's basically it. Right. All right. Thank you. All right. Well, thanks everyone for coming, and we'll be back in a little bit to go through the battery stuff. And there's a little bit more in addition to the battery stuff. We got a little few extras as well. So I think you'll really like what we have to say on batteries. The battery stuff we're going to talk about is truly revolutionary and essential to Tesla's goal. The fundamental good of Tesla. It's like if you look back in history and say what good did Tesla do? The good will be to by how many years did we accelerate sustainable energy? That's like the true metric of success. It matters if sustainable energy happens faster or slower, and so that's really like how I think about Tesla and how we should sort of assess our progress. By how many years did we accelerate sustainable energy? And what we're going to talk about with batteries and a few other things will really explain how we're going to make a step change improvement in the acceleration of sustainable energy. Thank you.
Hi, folks. That was great. We're going to take a short break before we begin the Battery Day event. So stay tuned. If you're local and here in the audience today, you can feel free to get out of the cars and stretch your legs. But try to stay near the cars because we're going to begin promptly in a little bit. See you soon.
Okay, so first part done. That was probably...
Wait, you are so loud.
I'm so sorry. Okay, I'll turn it down.
You're still too loud.
Still too loud?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Martin just blew out our ears there. But no, I think we had a nice little wrap up to the shareholder meeting. Man, I know we're all looking forward to Battery Day, me especially. I wish they did Battery Day first. We'll be here keeping you guys entertained all the way to the presentation for Battery Day and then afterwards for about a half hour. Tom, did you catch any of that, or were you too busy making fun comments with me?
Oh, Tom, sorry, I muted Tom.
That was... Oh.
There you go. You're back. You're back, Tom. You're good.
Sorry. Yeah, the one thing that I was interested in is how Elon was talking about tightening up the supply chains. That was the one thing that caught my attention, and that I think where they could probably make some headway.
Okay, John, you were watching that. You have been in the automotive industry longer than most people would care to guess. That was an interesting automotive event.
Yeah, I mean, look, starting it off with the shareholder part was, I think, a bad move from just a customer relations standpoint. It was just a bunch of complaints about Tesla. People were bringing it up to the board. But then when we got to Elon talking in the recap, that's typical of an automotive press conference where you spend the first portion going over your results for the year and pumping yourself up. And so that's not surprising to hear. I always think it's interesting when Tesla points out that manufacturing is really what they're all about. And I think Elon's making the point that if you look at a Lucid, if you look at a Rivian, if you look at any of these other startups, what they haven't proven is that they can build cars at scale. And he said multiple times, it's easy to make a prototype. In Nicola's case, it's easy to make a rendering. But when you have to produce tens of thousands of something and do it profitably, that's the hard part. And Tesla has now survived that transition. And I think Elon is pointing to the fact that none of these other startups have done that yet. So we'll see. I think Rivian is going to be the first one to be put to that test, and they have the help of Ford to get over those growing pains. And we'll see how that works out. But yeah, I mean, Elon gets to now brag that they have reached scale and they're accelerating. So.
Yeah, that was interesting that he went with the announcement of that. Let me just bring it like that so I don't cover up everyone's faces. The public beta of full self driving which has been 8 to 10 weeks away about a month ago. So he is on schedule with saying it's a month or so away. This is a complete rewrite of the core system. And he said several times, he uses this on his way to work. So it's really interesting as people start to understand Elon's terminology. When he says feature complete, full self-driving, when he says feature complete, what he means by that is that it has the potential to get it from his house to the factory, or from your house to your work, without interventions. And he said that there's been some days when he's gone from home to work without intervention. And then that's the definition of feature complete. And I don't know about you, but I printed something out for somebody earlier because they were asking me about the 5 or the 6 levels of automation. So I was like, it starts down there and it goes up to there where you'll fall asleep at the wheel. And do you guys think, like Tom, is there a general perception that when still he says it's going to be out, in a month's time, people are then like, great, it's going to drive me everywhere?
Yeah, I think a lot of that, and I bet you a lot of people watching this assume that hey, level 5 autonomy's here, it's done. We're still in the beta, version, but not long after that, you'll just be able to hop in the car, say, take me to work, and pick up your magazine and start reading. And it's not there yet, but Elon and Tesla keep pushing that envelope. Somebody has to be the first one to introduce higher levels and just kind of push the envelope. They're willing to do it. The entrenched OEMs won't do it. They're afraid of lawsuits. So you need a trailblazer like Tesla. So I'm not going to criticize them for that. I have been critical of Elon over the years for constantly saying, oh, by the end of the year, we're going to have it. By the end of the year, we're going to have it. Now it's 8 weeks. Now it's 4 weeks. So maybe this is the year we're going to have it. But Martin, as you know, we've talked about this before. 3 years ago, we were supposed to have it by the end of the year. But it looks like with this rewrite, we actually are going to get a taste of, feature complete as far as Tesla calls it. And I'm excited to see what that's going to be.
Can I ask, since since 3 of us own Teslas, how many of us ponied up for the full self-driving? Right, I did. Did you guys?
We did on one car. I don't think it's worth it personally for what you get today. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, John, because right now, basic autopilot does a great job, of course, of lane centering, distance cruise, and that's about it, all the safety stuff. There is a new option until the end of this month. Enhanced autopilot is back, and this is a $4,000 upgrade from base. And this gives you summon, although I don't believe it says smart summon in there. It gives you enhanced autopilot, navigate on autopilot, and lane changes. All nice things, maybe worth like $1,000 or $1,500 to me. The lane changes are most important. Still not worth $4,000, I think. And then you can spend $8,000 for full self-driving. Now, if Tesla said you can buy full self-driving and you can transfer it to your next one, I'd probably go for it because we'll probably have a Tesla in the garage for a while. So when you bought your Tesla, was it $8,000? It was $7,000. What was it worth?
Mine was $5,000, and to be honest, I would, if I had to do it all over again, I would not do it because the features I like are in basic autopilot. I like what it can do on a long road trip, stay in a lane, change lanes, and things like that. Right now, navigate on autopilot is pretty useless because it doesn't work off the highway, and usually I take control when I'm going to go from like one highway to another or something like that. Also, when I bought the car, I was confused about the difference between autopilot and full self-driving. Honestly, I spent that $5,000 because I was confused. So,
and John, you have a staff. John's our boss, everybody, if you don't know that.
You would think
you have a staff of people, any one of which could have explained this to you.
Right.
So, what am I paying for? What am I paying for here?
My purchase that happened quickly.
Maddening to hear you say that.
I know. But it doesn't it also speak to what average people probably go through and the poor marketing of both of these technologies, regular autopilot and full self-driving. It really, like I said, I wouldn't do it over again because what I like is already in autopilot. I have to date, I've never used Smart Summon. It's too scary, and I haven't found time to find an empty parking lot to play with it and try it out. So now that said, I have it now. I like that it increases the value of the car, again, for resale and depreciation, stuff like that. And I am interested in trying it out when it is feature complete. I can tell you that now that you can use autopilot on roads off the highway, it is really cool. It is really cool to be going on a 35-mile-per-hour road through intersections, through, under green lights. It is really cool. So I'm starting to get tastes of what full self-driving might be like, and it feels cool. And maybe I'll be happier about it when it is feature complete. But yeah,
well, you've got it now, so you've bought it. It's yours. So for
right,
everyone else,
right, it's just not here yet. Right,
Yeah.
the feature complete isn't here yet. But yeah, the little taste I get of it when like I said, when they made autopilot work on regular roads, it is very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course, subscription.
So guys,
I think I would subscribe to it because if I'm doing a long road trip, just in like post-COVID, like the amount of road tripping I'm doing is so little that we think that subscriptions, they're all moving back to their cars. I reckon there's been some sort of announcement. I would subscribe if it was $100, $150 a month, and I had a family holiday. I'd do that. If that's an option, then I'd do that. But maybe the minimum would be 3 months or something. I don't know, because I just think they would potentially lose money. But recurring revenue is kind of like the dream for most people.
They should give like a free trial.
Yeah, like a free month, and then Netflix it up.
Yeah,
off
exactly.
We go. What did we all think of that the first time we saw the cars parked? I got to admit, I thought it looked a little weird. I'm used to it now.
I love the honking in place of the clapping. That was great.
I spit my drink out. It was so funny. I was like, what in the world? I just wish they were all color-coded, and I was looking to find the car that the wheels were doing this, because someone was so bored they were playing the racing game.
Right.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I think it looked odd. The honking seemed odd, but it got you. Because Elon plays to the room so much, doesn't he? Like when he does, the most recent being Cybertruck, because everyone was, not everyone, but lots of people dressed up and that whole kind of steampunk thing. And he had his leather jacket on and he was in his element there. He looked more uncomfortable here. He couldn't play to the room. There was no, because there is an element of that kind of whooping and hollering, and he just has to walk out on stage like a great stand-up, in their prime. And you go to see a gig, and they just walk out, and everyone's like, "Yeah!" They haven't said a word yet. And I think he felt the first few seconds. I thought he felt a little awkward, and then he warmed up. I thought he was into it.
The plug seeker just had a good comment over there. He said we should have all done this podcast from our cars, also like the other people.
Yeah,
Martin from your Zoe and the three of us from our Teslas.
Yeah, you know what? If they ever do this again, now we know. We'll just sit in our driveways and we can be virtually with the crowd like that. Although I would look different because I'm in a Renault Zoe to you guys. So that's super interesting. He did touch on manufacturing, and I think that was a sign of what's to come next in Battery Day.
Well, we all know Elon, his new thing is manufacturing. It's always been the cars, the technology, but now it's been super geeking out on manufacturing. So I expect and hope to see some big breakthroughs tonight. I think this could be a huge thing for everyone.
I wonder what the format's going to be next, because that was very, very stiff, very shareholder meeting. If I were them, I would have said the shareholder meeting is not being live streamed to the general public, and that our Battery Day live stream starts, I don't know, in enough time that they could have overrun and still had a break, because I think lots of people would have tuned in for this and been like, whoa, what's this? Now, we all listen to the earnings calls 4 times a year, so we're used to things like analysts asking, in Elon's words, bonehead questions. But even that was proper administration stuff and procedural things. I think a lot of people would have been like, "Whoa, what have I tuned into here?" So I don't think they should have made that bit public. I'm not sure that helped. Looks like we might be coming back now.
Oh, yeah.
Let's hope they've turned the sound on their video player. If anyone was watching right at the beginning, definitely not us. 100% not us. It wasn't coming through. We'll have a listen, and fingers crossed. Keep everything crossed.
Hello, everyone. Sure. Thanks, Elon. Oh, hi. I'm Drew Baglino, SVP of Powertrain and Energy Engineering at Tesla, and I'm incredibly excited to talk about what we've been doing at batteries here at Tesla.
Great. So let's see. You got the clicker.
Yeah, I've got the clicker. Yeah.
Okay. Let's yeah. I'll take it first, perhaps.
Sure.
So obviously the issues we're facing are very serious. You know, with climate change, and we're experiencing these issues on a day-to-day basis. It's incredibly important we accelerate the advent of sustainable energy. Time really matters. This presentation is about accelerating the time to sustainable energy. So the past 5 years were the hottest on record. We have what looks like a wall for CO2 ppm. It's obviously, you know, this time is not like the past. It's really important that we take action. Running this climate experiment is insane. So,
Especially when it's just a transitory one anyway.
yes.
We're going to run out of these fossil fuels. Let's just move to the future and not run this experiment any longer.
Yeah. Talk a bit louder.
You got it.
Okay. So anyway, there is a lot of good news though. A lot of people may not be aware that wind and solar comprise 75% of new electricity capacity in the U.S. this year. So this is a really major. So the grid is going sustainable very, very quickly. Now it's also worth noting that the length of time that power plants last is on the order of 25 years. So even if 100% of energy generation was sustainable, it would still take 25 years to weighted at Tesla, but it is a massive part of our future. The three parts of a sustainable energy future are sustainable energy generation, storage, and electric vehicles. So we intend to play a significant role in all three. So to accelerate the transition to sustainable energy, we must produce more EVs that need to be affordable and a lot more energy storage while building factories faster and with far less investment. So scale battery production. So Tera is the new giga, and a terawatt is 1,000 times more than a gigawatt. So we used to talk in terms of gigawatts. In the future, we'll be talking in terms of terawatt hours. So this is what's needed in order to transition the world to sustainability.
Yeah, and you can see we're talking about 100x growth in batteries for electric vehicles to achieve this mission. And we are going to get there. It's just a matter of how fast, and our intention is to accelerate it.
Yeah. You basically need on the order of roughly 10 terawatt hours a year of battery production to transition the global fleet of vehicles to electric.
And the average vehicle lasts 15 years, so we're talking about 150 terawatt hours, give or take, to transition the whole all vehicles of all types to electric.
Yeah, so it's a lot of batteries, basically. Yeah, so.
And then on the grid side, we have a similar mountain to climb, 1,600 times growth from today's grid batteries to go 100% renewable on the grid and to take all of the existing heating fossil fuel uses in homes and businesses 100% electric.
Yeah, and this number, I think, might grow even more, as the world economy matures and as countries with high populations industrialize, we could see this number be even more. But let's say it's like roughly 20 to 25 terawatt hours per year, sustained for 15 to 25 years to transition the world to renewable. This is a lot.
Yeah.
So today's batteries cannot scale fast enough. They're just too small. For Giga Nevada, 150 gigawatt hours per year is like what we probably expect to make out of there. But this is really pretty small in the grand scheme of things. That's only 0.15 terawatt hours. And it costs too much. So
We would need 135 fully built out Nevada gigafactories to achieve 20 terawatt hours a year. It's not scalable enough of a solution. We need a dramatic rethink of the cell manufacturing system to scale as fast as we can and should.
yeah, and I think we should view this as more than just a question of money. Money is sort of like an ethereal thing, but it's really the amount of effort. You have a certain amount of effort, in terms of people and machines, and depending on how efficient that effort is, for a given amount of effort, you want the most amount of batteries. So it's not just a question of like, well, if we had $2 trillion, tomorrow you could make this. It's not that easy. You actually need to organize a massive number of people, build a lot of machines, build the machines that make the machines. And so it's incredibly important to have that effort yield the most number of batteries. So, and then goal two, obviously, we need to make more affordable cars. I think one of the things that troubles me the most is that we don't yet have a truly affordable car, and that is something that we will make in the future. But in order to do that, we've got to get the cost of batteries down. We've got to make, and we've got to be better at manufacturing, and we need to do something about this curve. The curve of the cost per kilowatt hour of batteries is not improving fast enough. So we've given this a lot of thought over many years to say, okay, how can we radically improve the cost per kilowatt hour curve? It's been somewhat flattening out actually in recent years. So
I mean, early growth was promising, but you can see we're kind of plateauing. So that's what's motivating us to rethink how cells are produced and designed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and EV market share is growing, but EVs, still aren't accessible to all. And you can see, it's, as Drew was saying, it's like starting to flatten out a little bit because the rate of improvement of the affordability of cars is just not fast enough. So that's why we got Battery Day.
Yeah. To make the best cars in the world, we design vehicles and factories from the ground up. Next.
Yeah.
And now we do this for batteries as well.
Yeah. It's weird, the slides don't show up quite right. Anyway. What shows up on the screen is not quite what shows up there. Anyway.
Oh, okay.
It's different.
Yeah, I think it's because that's,
No, that one's current, supposed to be current. Anyway.
So let's get started. We have a plan to halve the cost per kilowatt hour.
Yeah.
And it's not a plan that rests on a single innovation, some research project that'll never see the light of day. It's a plan that has taken creative engineering and industrialization across every facet of what makes a cell into a battery pack, from raw material to the finished thing. And we're going to go through that plan with you today, step by step, and build up how we get to these goals and how we accelerate this transition and make our vehicles and our grid batteries more affordable.
Yeah. I mean, we basically thought through every element of the battery, well, almost every element. There are a few more elements that we won't get to today, but we will get to in the future.
Yes. So first, before we get too far into it, let's talk about what is in a battery cell. We've got the cap and the can, negative and positive terminals of the cell. When you open that cell, you've got a tab connected to those terminals, what we call the jelly roll, which is the wound electrodes on the inside. You can actually see what this looks like as you unwind it. This is over 1 meter long in a typical 2170 cell. So it's quite a long winding process. And you can see the tab still there. And then to explain what's actually going on here, we've identified we've got anode, cathode, separator, positive and negative terminal. Watch what happens as we, there we go, discharge the cell. Got lithium moving from anode to cathode, and then the reverse. When we charge the cell, anode moving from lithium moving from cathode to anode across the separator. This is the basic of what makes all lithium-ion batteries, whether they're no matter what the form factor is. And when we look at what's happened to date, at least in our products, we've moved from the 18650 form factor to the 2170 form factor through great collaboration with our partners, Panasonic, new partners like LG and CATL, and probably others in the future.
Yeah. Actually, so a slight note on why is the one called the 18650, although not on the slide, versus the 2170, is that the first two digits refer to the diameter, and the second two digits refer to the length. So that helps explain why are these weird. What's up with these weird numbers? But like nobody could explain to me why there was an extra zero. So like, okay, well, we're deleting the zero that nobody can explain in future form factors. So that's why it's technically it's like the 18650 bizarrely, but going forward it's the 2170 because we just got rid of the extra zero because it's pointless.
And this was a evolutionary step, going from 1865 to 2170, bringing 50% more energy into the cell. But when we look to the ideal cell design, if we were to do it ourselves, we need to go beyond just what we're looking at us in front of us, and study the full spectrum of options. So as you can see, we kind of swept the key figures of merit, how much we can reduce the cost, and how much vehicle range increases as we change the outer diameter of the cell. We found a sweet spot somewhere around 46 millimeters. But it's not just about a bigger form factor. Like anybody could make a bigger form factor.
Any fool could make a bigger form factor. We not any fool.
Yeah, exactly. There are problems as you make cells larger. In fact, supercharging and thermals in general become really challenging as you make bigger cells. And this was the challenge that our team set our sights on to overcome. And we did. We came up with this tabless architecture that maybe you've heard about, that basically removes the thermal problem from the equation and allows us to go to the absolute lowest cost form factor and the simplest manufacturing process. And this is what we mean when we talk about tabless. It's kind of a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's what these T-shirts mean, but it's very esoteric. It's like nobody could figure it out. But
yeah, we basically took the existing foils, laser patterned them, and enabled dozens of connections into the active material through this shingled spiral you can see, with simpler manufacturing, fewer parts, 50 millimeter versus 250 millimeter electrical path length, which is how we get all the thermal benefits.
Yeah, this is important to appreciate. Like basically the distance that electron has to travel, it's just much less. So you actually have a shorter path length in a large tabless cell than you have in the smaller cell with tabs. This is a big deal. So even though the cell is bigger, it actually has more power. The power to weight ratio is actually better than the smaller cell with tabs. This is, again, like this is quite hard to do. So it's nobody's done it before. And it really took a tremendous amount of effort within Tesla engineering to figure out how do we make a freaking tabless cell and have it actually work and then connect that to the top cap. And it's there's a whole bunch of things that we're keeping a little secret sauce here that we're not telling everything. But
sometimes what's elegant and simple is still hard, and it took us a lot of trials, but we're happy where we ended up.
Yeah, I mean everything's simple in recollection. After you simple, everything it's hard until it's discovered, and then it's simple. So anyway, but there's a lot of really cool things going on that enable tabless, and it's really due to a really great engineering team. Drew and the rest of the team have done amazing work in achieving this tabless construction. And it sounds, I think it may sort of sound a bit silly to some people, but this is like, if for people that really know cells, this is a massive breakthrough.
For cylindricals to be able to get rid of the tabs dramatically simplifies winding and coating.
Yeah.
And has an awesome thermal and performance benefit.
Yeah, that's just to elaborate on that a bit. It's like when the cell is going through the system, it has to keep stopping where all the tabs are.
Yes.
So you can't do continuous motion production if you have tabs. You have to keep stopping, and then there's a rate at which you can start and stop and accelerate again, and it really slows down the rate of production. And then sometimes you get the tabs wrong, and you also lose a little bit of active area. It's really a huge pain in the ass to have tabs from a production standpoint.
Yes. And so when we put it all together and go to our new 80 millimeter length, 4680, we call this new cell design, we get 5 times the energy with 6 times the power and enable 16% range increase just form factor alone.
Yeah, so when these, yeah, it's pretty great. And just to clarify, that when we see these plus 16% or whatever the percentage range increases, these are the amounts due just to that particular innovation.
Yes.
So we'll list a whole bunch of innovations, and then when you add them up, you get a total improvement in energy density and cost. But these numbers are what refer to just this thing.
Yeah, and I want to stress, this is not just a concept or a rendering. We are starting to ramp up manufacturing of these cells at our pilot 10 gigawatt hour production facility just around the corner.
Yeah. So, yeah. It's a video of some of what's going on in the plant. Now, I mean, to be clear, it will take about a year to reach the 10 gigawatt hour capacity. So this is important to appreciate. Like when you build a factory, there's a certain capacity that you design to, and then it takes some period of time to actually achieve that capacity. So I would say it's probably about a year before we get to the 10 gigawatt hour annualized rate with the pilot plant. And this is just a pilot plant. The actual production plants will be more on the order of maybe 200 gigawatt hours, maybe more over time.
And thank you. But let's stack up everything we just saw at the cell level. So just the cell form factor change enables a 14% dollar per kilowatt hour reduction, just that cell form factor change. And now that you've been teased on this factory, we're going to go on and walk step by step through that factory and discuss a series of innovations there. When thinking about the ideal cell factory, we have inspirations behind us in the paper and bottling industry, where from humble beginnings, over a century of innovation has enabled mass scale, continuous motion, unbelievably low manufacturing cost. And when we think about the lithium-ion industry, which is really only in its 3rd decade of high-volume production, it has so far to go to achieve similar scale and simplicity. And that was the inspiration that we set out to the team as we thought about how to marry cell design and manufacturing in the best possible factory. And let's talk a little bit about what's in a cell factory. First, there's an electrode process where the active materials are coated into films onto foils. Then those coated foils are wound in the winding process we just talked about, where if you do have tabs, you have to start and stop a lot. Then the jelly roll is assembled into the can, sealed, filled with electrolyte, and then sent to formation, where the cell is charged for the first time, and where the sort of the electrochemistry is set and the quality of the cell is verified. And we set out at every step of this process to try to take that inspiration we just showed and think about how we make those processes fundamentally better and more scalable. And one of the most important processes is where it all begins, the wet process of the electrode coating. And just to give you all a sense of scale, I'm going to walk through what's in that wet process. You've got mixing, where the powders are mixed with either a water or a solvents for the cathode. That mix then goes into a large coat and dry oven, where the slurry is coated onto the foil, huge ovens, tens of meters long. dried, and that solvent then has to be recovered. You can see the solvent recovery system. And then finally, the coated foil is compressed to the final density. And when you're looking at this, you're like, wow, that's a lot of equipment for one step, especially when you consider that little speck next to the coating oven is a person. This is serious iron involved in making batteries. Wouldn't it be great if we could skip that solvent step, which is one of those dig a ditch and then fill it kind of things where you put the solvent in and then take it out and recycle it, and just go straight to dry mix to coat? And that's what the dry process really is about. And in the most basic form, you can see it here on a bench top. Literally, powder into film. As simple as that.
I mean, it's hard, actually, just to be clear. So, you know, if this was easy, everyone would do it. So it's not like dry coating electrode is actually easy. It's actually very hard to do what appears to be a simple thing. And it's worth noting, like, you know, we did acquire Maxwell as like a little over a year ago, I guess. And you know, it's certainly a good company and everything, but the dry coating they had was like, is like sort of, I would call proof of concept. Since the acquisition, we've actually revved the machine that does the dry coating 4 times. So we're in revision 4 post-acquisition of the machine, and there's still a lot of work to do. So I would not say this is like completely in the bag. It's still a lot of work to do, and you know, as you go from like benchtop to lab to pilot to volume production, there are actually major issues that you encounter at every level. It's not like, you know, you make something work on your bench and bingo, now you can make a bazillion of it.
Absolutely.
It's insanely difficult to scale up.
Yeah, but if you do scale it up,
yeah,
what you saw before becomes this.
Yeah.
So you can see the motivation. A 10 times reduction in footprint, a 10 times reduction in energy, and a massive reduction in investment. But as Elon was saying, simple is hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, to be clear, I would like to not say that right now it's just totally working. It's close to working, but it's not, even now at the pilot plant level, it is close to working. Well, it's fair to say it does work, but with not a high yield.
Yeah.
So
we're still ironing out the kinks, but we've made tens of thousands of cells, thousands of kilometers of electrode. I mean, we are on the 4th generation of the equipment, so we've learned a lot along the way.
Yeah.
I mean, it is super demanding because every atom has its place if you want to deliver the energy density and the cycle life and the supercharging.
Yeah.
But we're confident that we will get there, but it will be a lot of work along the way.
There's a clear path to success, but a ton of work between here and there.
Yep.
So, but this is a really profound improvement. Again, for people that know battery manufacturing, this is gigantic. We'll probably be on machine revision 6 or 7 by the time we do large-scale production. The rate at which the machines are being improved is extremely rapid. Like literally every 3 or 4 months is a new rev.
Yeah, and beyond the electrode, we continue to innovate on every other process step. So let's talk a little bit about assembly, which is next. The key to a high-performing assembly line is accomplishing processes while in motion, continuous motion, and thinking of the line as a highway, max velocity down the highway, no start and stop, no city driving.
Exactly, no stoplights and traffic lights or anything. You want the highway.
I want the highway.
Yeah.
And together with our internal design team that makes this equipment and designs this equipment, we coupled thinking about how to make the best cell with thinking about how to make the best equipment so that we could accomplish the fastest parts per minute rates on all of these tools. And through all of that development, we were able to get to the point where we can implement assembly lines, one line, 20 gigawatt hours, 7 times increase in output per line. And when you're thinking about scalability and pure effort, having one line be 7x the capability is just effort multiplying.
Yeah. So. Yeah, you can sort of think about like the sort of the fundamental physics of a factory or something. Like, I think it's actually quite a lot like the rocket equation, where you've got basically in the rocket equation you've got your exhaust velocity and then the log of the start to end masses. So it's basically saying, you know, how fast are things going, and what percentage of the factory volume is doing useful work, and conveyance does not count as useful work. So
only the value-added steps.
yeah, if you break the factory down into cubic meter sections, and say or smaller, it could be like 1 liter sections, and say is a majority of this volume doing useful work, you would be astounded at how bad most factories are. They're like maybe 2 or 3%, including our factory in Fremont. So I think it is possible to get to at least 10 times that volumetric efficiency. So more like 30% ish, maybe more, and be 10x better, which means the factory can be 10 times smaller. And then the other thing is how fast are things going through the factory. It's like speed and density. The faster you go, like if a factory that's moving at say twice the speed of another factory is equivalent to two factories basically, and the company that will be successful is the company that with one factory can accomplish what other companies take 2 or 3 or 4 factories to do. So this is what we're trying to do here is say, okay, how do we with one factory achieve what maybe 5 or even 10 factories would normally be required to achieve?
And the vertical integration with the machine design teams at Groman and Highbar and others allows us to really accomplish that, because we don't have all these edge conditions between one piece of equipment and another. We can design the entire machine to be one machine and remove all of these unnecessary steps.
Yeah, I mean, basically Tesla is aiming to be the best at manufacturing of any company on Earth. This is the thing that's actually most important in the long run. I think, just from a company standpoint and from basically achieving sustainability as fast as possible. But I think also for long-term competitiveness, eventually every car company will have long-range electric cars. Eventually every company will have autonomy. I think, but not every company will be great at manufacturing. Tesla will be absolutely head and shoulders above anyone else in manufacturing. That is our goal.
Manufacturing is hard, and hard problems are fun to solve. Okay, now let's talk about formation. In a typical cell factory, formation represents 25% of the investment. And what is formation? It's charging and discharging cells and verifying the quality of the cell. Turns out we've charged and discharged billions and billions of cells in our vehicles, so we know a thing or two about that. The typical formation setup is you charge and discharge each cell individually. In our car, we charge thousands of cells at once. And we took our principal and our power electronics, leveraging Powerwall, vehicle battery management systems, and others, to dramatically improve the formation equipment cost effectiveness and density. 86% reduction in formation investment, 75% reduction in footprint.
So.
You want to take this one?
Sure. So essentially what this translates to, based on what we know today, is about a 75% reduction in the investment per kilowatt hour or gigawatt hour. It's just basically 4 times better than the current state of the art to the best of our knowledge. And I think there's probably room to improve even beyond that.
Definitely.
Definitely, yeah. So we're able to, from a volume standpoint, actually get what, in a smaller form factor than Giga Nevada, we were able to get many times the cell output. So you can see, like, basically we can get a terawatt hour in less space than it took to make a gigawatt hour, 150 gigawatt hours. So this is pretty profound. It's like, I would actually not have thought this was possible several years ago, that we could actually get to terawatt hour scale in less space than what we currently envision for doing 150 gigawatt hours. So
yes, simpler accelerates terawatt hour scale, and that's what we need to do to accelerate our mission. And as Elon said, we're going to try to even improve on this as we push towards our goals, which are.
Yeah. So this is just for this is just talking about Tesla internal cell production. As I tweeted out earlier, we will continue to use our cell suppliers, Panasonic and LG and CATL, and so this is 100 gigawatt hours supplemental to what we buy from suppliers. And yeah, essentially, this does like reduce our weighted average cost of a cell because it allows us to make a lot more cars and a lot more stationary storage. And then long term, we're expecting to make on the order of 3,000 gigawatt hours or 3 terawatt hours per year. I think we can. I think we've got a good chance of achieving this actually before 2030, but I'm highly confident that we could do it by 2030.
When you look at the size of that factory on the previous page, it really shows how enabling all of these advancements are in achieving a 3 terawatt hour goal by 2030. And not only is all of that manufacturing innovation fantastic for enabling scale, it's also an additional 18% reduction in dollar per kilowatt hour at the battery pack level.
But wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more.
Yeah.
So we have a manufacturing system. We've got a cell design. What are the active materials we're going to put in that cell design? Let's talk about the anode first. Let's talk about silicon. Why is silicon awesome? It's awesome because it's the most abundant element in the Earth's crust after oxygen, which means it's everywhere. It's sand.
Yeah. Sand is silicon dioxide.
Yeah. And it happens to store 9 times more lithium than graphite, which is the typical anode material in lithium-ion batteries today. So why isn't everybody using it? The main reason is because the challenge with silicon is that it expands 4x when fully charged with lithium. And basically, all of that expansion stress on the particles start cracking, they start electrically isolating, you lose capacity, the energy retention of the battery starts to fade, and it also gums up with a passivation layer that has to keep reforming as the particles expand.
Yeah, basically, with silicon, the cookie crumbles and gets gooey. That's basically what happens.
Good analogy.
Yeah.
And current approaches to solve this, which exist, I mean, we have silicon in the cars that you're all in right now, are involved highly engineered, expensive materials in the scheme of things. Now, they're still great, and they enable some of the benefits of silicon. They just don't enable all of it, and they're not scalable enough. And you can see some of the things that maybe you've heard of, SiO, silicon with carbon, or silicon nanowires. I mean, that's kind of the space right now. What we're proposing is a step change in capability and a step change in cost. And what that really is to just go to the raw metallurgical silicon itself. Don't engineer the base metal. Just start with that and design for it to expand in how you think of the particle in the electrode design and how you code it.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if you saw this. Basically, $1 per kilowatt hours.
Yeah.
Basically, if you use simple silicon, it's dramatically less than even the silicon that is currently used in the batteries that are made today. And you can use a lot more of it.
The anode would cost, with this silicon, and the anode costs $1.20 a kilowatt hour.
Yeah.
And how does it work? Start with raw metallurgical silicon, stabilize the surface with an elastic ion conducting polymer coating that is applied through a very scalable approach. No like chemical vapor deposition, no highly engineered high capex solutions, and then integrated in the electrode through a robust network formed out of a highly elastic binder. And in the end, by leveraging this silicon to its potential, we can increase the range of our vehicles by an additional 20%, just this improvement.
Yeah, it gets cheaper and longer range.
Yeah, and when we take that anode cost reduction, we're looking at another 5% dollar per kilowatt hour reduction at the battery pack level. And there's more. Let's talk about cathodes. What is a battery cathode? Cathodes are like bookshelves where the metal, the nickel, the cobalt, the manganese, or aluminum is like the shelf, and the lithium is the book. And really, what sets apart these different metals is how many books of lithium they can fit on the shelves and how sturdy the shelves are. Cobalt is a...
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say, like, it's tough to exactly figure out what the right analogy is to explain cathode and anode, but a bookshelf is probably a pretty good one, in the sense that you need a stable structure to contain the ions. So you want a structure that does not crumble or get gooey, or basically that holds its shape in both the cathode and the anode. As you're moving these ions back and forth, it needs to retain its structure. So if it doesn't retain its structure, then you lose cycle life and your battery capacity drops very quickly.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. And I think people are always talking about like, oh, what's the cathode going to be? Is it NCA or whatever? You know, the thing to consider is just fundamentally what the nickel, the metals are capable of, and that's what we have on the chart here. $1 per kilowatt hour cathode of just the metal, using just LME, you know, London Metal Exchange prices, versus the energy density of just the cathode. And you can see nickel is the cheapest and the highest energy density, and that's why increasing nickel is a goal of ours and really everybody's in the energy in the battery industry. But one of the reasons why cobalt is even used at all is because it is a very stable bookshelf. And the challenge with going to pure nickel is stabilizing that bookshelf with only nickel. And that's what we've been working on with our high nickel cathode development, which has 0 cobalt in it. Leveraging novel coatings and dopants, we can get a 15% reduction in cathode $1 per kilowatt hour.
Yeah. Big deal.
But it's not just about nickel. You want to?
Yeah, sure. So in order to scale, we really need to make sure that we're not constrained by total nickel availability. I actually spoke with the CEOs of the biggest mining companies in the world and said, please make more nickel. It's very important. And so I think they are going to make more nickel. But there's also, I think we need to have a kind of a 3-tiered approach to batteries. So starting with iron, that's kind of like a medium range, and then nickel manganese as sort of a medium plus, intermediate, and then a high nickel for long range applications like Cybertruck and the semi. Because something like a semi truck, it's extremely important to have high energy density in order to get long range. So and just to give sort of iron a bit more time, like although if you look at the watt-hours per kilogram at the cathode level of iron, it looks like nickel's twice as good. But when you fully considered at the pack level, everything else taken into account, nickel is about maybe 50 or 60% better than iron. So iron is a little better than it would seem when you look at it at the pack level fully considered. It's not as good as nickel. Nickel is like 50 to 60% better, but it's actually pretty good. And so, good for stationary storage and for medium range applications where energy density is not paramount. And then, like I said, for intermediate, it's kind of a nickel manganese. And it's relatively straightforward to do a cathode that's 2/3 nickel, 1/3 manganese, which would then allow us to make 50% more cell volume with the same amount of nickel.
And with very little energy trade-off. I mean,
Yeah.
Just enough to have you still want to use 100% nickel for something like a semi-truck, but really not much of a sacrifice at all.
Yeah.
And, beyond the metals, because a lot of people spend time talking about the metals, actually the cathode process itself is a big target. 35% of the cathode $1 per kilowatt hour is just in transferring it into its final form. And so we see that as a big target, and we decided to take that on. Here's a view of the traditional cathode process. Effectively, if you start at the left and you have the metal from the mine, the first thing that happens is the metal from the mine is changed into an intermediate thing called a metal sulfate, because that's just happened to be what chemists wanted a long time ago. And then when you're making the cathode, you have to take this intermediate thing called metal sulfate, add chemicals, add a whole bunch of water, a whole bunch of stuff happens in the middle, and at the end, you get that little bit of cathode and a whole bunch of wastewater and byproducts.
Yeah, it's insanely complicated. If you look at the total, like if you're just like, it's a small world journey of I am a nickel atom. What happens to me? And it's crazy. Like you're going around the world 3 times. There's like the moral equivalent of like digging the ditch, filling the ditch, and digging the ditch again. It's total madness, basically. And these things just grew up as they're just kind of like legacy things that it's like how it was done before. And then they connected the dots, but really didn't think of the whole thing from like a first principle standpoint, saying how do we get from the nickel ore in the ground to the finished nickel product for a battery. And so we've looked at the entire value chain and said, how can we make this as simple as possible?
And that's what we're proposing here with our process. As you can see, a whole lot less is going on here. We get rid of the intermediate, metal, water, final product cathode, recirculate the water, no wastewater at all. And when you summarize all of that, it's a 66% reduction in CapEx investment, a 76% reduction in process cost, and 0 wastewater. Much more scalable solution.
Yeah.
And then when you think about the fact that now we're actually just directly consuming the raw metal nickel powder, it dramatically simplifies the metal refining part of the whole process. So we can eliminate billions in battery-grade nickel intermediate production. It's not needed at all.
Yeah.
We can also use that same process we showed on the previous page to directly consume the metal powder coming out of recycled electric vehicle and grid storage batteries. So this process enables both simpler mining and simpler recycling. And now that we have this process, obviously we're going to go and start building our own cathode facility in North America and leveraging all of the North American resources that exist for nickel and lithium. And just doing that, just localizing our cathode supply chain and production, we can reduce miles traveled by all the materials that end up in the cathode by 80%, which is huge for cost.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, cathode production would be part of the Tesla cell production plant. So it would just be, basically, raw materials coming from the mine, and from raw materials in the mine, out comes a battery.
And on that note, the way the lithium ends up in the cell is through the cathode. So then we should obviously on-site lithium conversion as well, which is what we will do using a new process that we're going to pioneer. That's a sulfate-free process again, skip the intermediate. 33% reduction in lithium cost, 100% electric facility co-located with the cathode plant.
Yeah. So it's important to note that there is a massive amount of lithium on Earth. So lithium is not like oil. There's a massive amount of it pretty much everywhere. In fact, there's enough lithium in the United States to convert the entire United States fleet to electric. Like all the cars in the United States, there's like 300 million or something like that. Every vehicle in the United States can be converted to electric using only lithium that is available in the United States.
Discovered today.
What we already know is exists.
People really haven't even been looking.
Yeah, people haven't been trying because it's just like widely available. So, but it is important to say, like, okay, what is the smartest way to take the ore and extract the lithium and do so in an environmentally friendly way? And we actually discovered again, looking at a sort of first principles physics standpoint, instead of just the way it's always been done, is we found that we can actually use table salt, sodium chloride, to basically extract the lithium from the ore. Nobody's done this before. To the best of my knowledge, nobody's done this. And it's a sort of, all the elements are reusable. It's a very sustainable way of obtaining lithium. And we actually we actually got rights to a lithium clay deposit in Nevada.
Over 10,000 acres.
Over 10,000 acres. And then the nature of the mining is actually, I think, also very environmentally sensitive in that we sort of take a chunk of dirt out of the ground, or remove the lithium, and then put the chunk of dirt back where it was. So it will look pretty much the same as before, and it will not look like terrible. And yeah, it'll be nice. Nice.
Yeah.
So
simply mix clay with salt, put it in water, salt comes out with the lithium, done. I mean,
it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. So we're really excited about this, and there really is enough lithium in Nevada alone to electrify the entire U.S. fleet.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, just what's in Nevada. That's basically there's so much damn lithium on Earth. It's crazy. It's one of the most common elements on the planet.
And eventually, as we said at the beginning, when we get to this steady state 20 terawatt hours per year of production, we will transfer the entire non-renewable fleet of both power plants, home heating and battery and industry heating and vehicles to electric. And at that point, we have an awesome resource in those batteries to recycle to make new batteries. So we don't need to do any more mining at that point. And you can see why.
Yeah.
The difference in the value of the material coming back from the vehicle versus the ground, you'd always go to the vehicle. And we recycle 100% of our vehicle batteries today. And actually, we are starting our pilot full-scale recycling production at Gigafactory Reno next quarter to continue to develop this process as our recycling returns grow.
Yeah, I mean, to date it's been done by third parties, but we think we can recycle the batteries more effectively, especially since we know our batteries, we're making the same battery as the thing we're recycling. So whereas like third-party recyclers have to consider batteries of all kinds.
Yeah, and just to think about what this actually means, the recycling resource is always 10 or greater years delayed because batteries last a really long time. But eventually, it is the way that all resources will be made available, and that's why we're investing in this recycling facility in Nevada.
Yeah. Long-term, new batteries will come from old batteries once the fleet reaches steady state.
Right. Okay, so we just talked about scaling cathode and recycling. All of the benefits that you just saw are added to this benefit of a 12% reduction in dollars per kilowatt hour at the battery pack level. Almost at our halve the cost goal, but there's one more section. Take it away, Elon.
So there's an architecture that we've been wanting to do at Tesla for a long time, and we finally figured it out. And I think it's the way that all electric cars in the future will ultimately be made. It's the right way to do things. So it starts with having a single piece casting, or a single piece casting for the front body and the rear body. And in order to do this, we commissioned the largest casting machine that has ever been made, and it's currently working just over the road at our Fremont plant. We have it's pretty sweet. Currently making the entire rear section of the car as a single piece, high pressure die cast aluminum. And in order to do this, we actually had to develop our own alloy because we wanted a high strength casting alloy that did not require coatings or heat treatment. This is a big deal for castings, especially with a large casting. If you heat treat it afterwards, it tends to deform. It kind of like does this like potato chip thing. So it's very hard to keep a large casting to have its shape. So in order to achieve this, there was no alloy that existed that could do this. So we developed our own alloy, a special alloy of aluminum that has high strength without heat treat and is very castable. So that's a great achievement of our materials team. In fact, in general, we've got a lot of advanced materials coming for Tesla, that new alloys and materials that have never existed before. So you're basically making the front and rear of the car as a single piece, and then that then interfaces to what we call the structural battery, where the battery for the first time will have dual use. The battery will both have the use as an energy device and as structure. This is absolutely the way things are done. In the early days of aircraft, they would carry the fuel tanks as cargo. So the fuel tanks actually were quite difficult to carry. They were like basically worse than cargo. You had to kind of bolt them down. It was very difficult. And then somebody said, "Hey, what if we just make the wing tanks? What if we just make the fuel tank in wing shape?" So all modern airplanes, the fuel tank, your wing is just a fuel tank in wing shape. This is absolutely the way to do it. And then the fuel tank serves as dual structure, and it's no longer cargo. It's fundamental to the structure of the aircraft. This was a major breakthrough. We're doing the same for cars. So this is really quite profound. Effectively, the non-cell portion of the battery has negative mass. So we save so much mass in the rest of the vehicle. We save more mass in the rest of the vehicle than the non-cell portion of the battery. So it's like, well, how do you really minimize the mass of a battery? Make it negative. Make the battery non-cell portion of the battery pack negative. It also allows us to pack the cells more densely because we do not have intermediate structure in the battery pack. So instead of having these like supports and stabilizers and stringers and structural elements in the battery, we now have a lot more space in the battery because the pack itself is structural. What we do is essentially instead of having just a filler that is a flame retardant, which is currently what is in the 3NY battery packs, we have a filler that is a structural adhesive, as well as flame retardant. So it effectively glues the cells to the top and bottom sheet, and this allows you to do shear transfer between the upper and lower sheet, just like if you have like a Formula One craft or like a racing boat, and you have carbon fiber face sheets and say aluminum honeycomb between them. This gives you incredible stiffness, and it's really the way that any super fast thing works. Is you create basically a honeycomb sandwich with two face sheets. This is actually even better than what aircraft do, because aircraft do not do this. They can't do this because fuel is liquid. So in our case, the batteries are solid. So we can actually use the steel shell case of the battery to transfer shear from the upper and lower face sheet, which makes for an incredibly stiff structure, even stiffer than a regular car.
Yeah.
In fact, if this was a convertible that had no upper structure, it would be stiffer than that convertible would be stiffer than a regular car. So this is it's just really really major. So it improves the mass efficiency of the battery, and then those castings are also quite important because you want to transfer load into the structural battery pack in a very smooth, continuous way, so you don't put arbitrary point loads into the battery. So you kind of have to, you want to sort of feather the load out from the front and rear into the structural battery. It also allows us to use to move the cells closer to the center of the car, because we don't have the in the top one we've got that sort of all the supports and stuff. So the volumetric efficiency of the structural pack is much better than a non-structural pack, and we actually bring the cells closer to the center, and because they're closer to the center, it reduces the probability of a side impact potentially contacting the cells, because it has to go in any kind of side impact has to go further in order to reach the cells. It also improves what's called the polar moment of inertia, which is that you can think of like when there's a ice skater, arms out or arms in. Arms in, you rotate faster. So if you can bring things closer to the center, you reduce the polar moment of inertia, and that means the car maneuvers better. It just feels better. You won't know why, but it just feels more agile. So it's really cool. This is really major. Like I said, so 10% mass reduction in the body of the car, 14% range increase, 370 fewer parts. So, I mean, I really think that long term, in any cars that do not take this architecture will not be competitive.
And it's not just at the product level a better product, but in the factory, it's a massive simplification. You saw the part removal. It's casting machines. It's the structural battery pack. So we're looking at over 50% reduction in investment per gigawatt hour, 35% reduction in floor space, and we'll continue to improve that as we make the vehicle factory of the future.
Yeah, so it's major improvements on all fronts, from the cell all the way to the vehicle.
And in addition to the improvements we just said on enabling additional range and improving the structural performance of the vehicle, it is worth another 7% dollar per kilowatt hour reduction at the battery pack level, bringing our total reductions now to 56% dollars per kilowatt hour.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so stacking it up, we're not just talking about cost or range. We've got to look at all the facets. So range increase, we're unlocking up to 54% increase in range for our vehicles and energy density for our energy products. 56% reduction in dollars per kilowatt hour at the battery pack level, and a 69% reduction in investment per gigawatt hour, which is the true enabler when we talk back about how do we achieve this scale problem here.
Yeah. So I think it's pretty nice that investment per gigawatt hour reduction is 69%. I mean, who would have thought?
Yeah, just happened to happen out that way.
I mean, 0.420%, of course. Yeah. So what this enables us to do is achieve a new trajectory in the reduction of cell cost. And now, to be clear, it will take us probably a year to 18 months to start realizing these advantages, and probably to fully realize the advantages, probably it's about 3 years or thereabouts. So, you know, it's not like if we could do this instantly, we would. But it's really, I think what this bodes for, it just really bodes well for the future, and means that the long-term scaling of Tesla and the sustainable energy products that we make will be massively increased. So, you know, what tends to happen as companies get bigger is things tend to slow down. Well, actually, they're going to speed up.
And they have to speed up if we're going to accelerate the transition to sustainable energy.
Yeah. I mean, long term, we want to try to replace about, at least 1% of the total vehicle fleet on Earth, which is about 2 billion vehicles. So long term, we want to try to make about 20 million vehicles a year.
But I think it's important to point out that when we talked about 3 terawatt hours by 2030, the problem is a 20 terawatt hour problem. So everybody needs to be accelerating their efforts to accomplish these objectives. Doesn't matter where you are in the value chain, there is a ton to do. You need to rethink from first principles how you do it so that you can scale to meet all of our objectives.
Yep.
And Elon?
Sure.
What does this mean?
What does it mean for what does this mean for our future products? We're confident that long term we can design and manufacture a compelling $25,000 electric vehicle. This has always been our dream from the beginning of the company. I even wrote a blog piece about it because our first car was an expensive sports car, and then it was like slightly less expensive sedan, and then finally sort of a, I don't know, mass market premium, but like the Model 3 and Model Y. But it was always our goal to try to make an affordable electric car, and I think probably, like I said, about 3 years from now, we're confident we can make a very compelling $25,000 electric vehicle that's also fully autonomous.
And when you think about the $25,000 price point, you have to consider how much less expensive it is to own an electric vehicle.
Yeah.
So actually, it becomes even more affordable at that $25,000 price point.
Yeah. So we have and extreme performance and range, and we should probably talk about the Model S Plaid. What about that? Yeah. Woo. So, anyway, we took the latest Plaid out to Laguna Seca on Sunday. It got a minute 30, and we think probably there's another 3 seconds or more to take off that time. So we're confident the Model S Plaid will achieve the best track time of any production vehicle ever, of any kind, two-door or otherwise. And you can order it now, and it's available basically end of next year. So, and now we'll move to Q&A.
Absolutely.
So we'll invite a few people on stage.
Come on up, team.
This is just a small portion of the team, but it would be great to, show you some more of the team, and when we do Q&A, we can give various people different questions to answer.
Sounds great. Actually, I don't know how we're getting the questions.
Actually, I don't know either. Is somebody going to read them to them? Okay, well, you can just you can maybe get out of the car for 2 seconds and yell it at us. I don't know. Hey, how do we get any questions?
Oh, they're mics. Okay, wait for the mic.
There are mics. Okay, great.
All right.
Okay, we'll definitely need to give people mics because otherwise, there's no way. Sorry? Okay. All right, we're going to pass some mics out. We don't have a name for the $25,000 car yet.
It's a great question, though.
Yes, we will be manufacturing cells in Berlin. Yep.
Thermal management system? For homes.
Oh, you mean like the home HVAC? Yeah, I mean, that's a pet project that I'd love to get going on. I don't know, maybe we'll start working on that next year. Because I just think man, you could really make a way better home HVAC system that's really quiet and super efficient and yeah, super energy efficient, and also has like a way better filter for particles, and yeah, and it works very reliably. And we've already developed that for the car. Like, so the heat pump in the Model Y is really pretty spectacular. I mean, it's tiny, it's efficient, it has to last for 15 years. It's got to work in all kinds of conditions, from the coldest winter to the hottest summer. So we've actually already done a massive amount of the work necessary for a really kick-ass home HVAC. And they could also like stack them. So if you want to say, depending upon the size of your house or whatever, how much you need, you can just basically stack them, and just have a very compelling, super efficient home HVAC. And then you can also communicate with the car, and it'll know when you're coming home. So it's like, oh, I don't need to keep the house cold all day. I just cool it down because I knew you were coming home. So the pack can communicate with the car and just like really dial it into when you actually need cooling and heating. It'd be great.
Fun product.
Yeah.
Who's next?
Hello. Hey guys, Eli here from Tesla Owners Club, My Tesla Adventure. Just quick question. So I'm a huge fan of car camping in my Tesla with my dream case, like my all-time favorite activity. Is it going to be possible to get climate control to the back of the Cybertruck? Because that would be the ultimate camping machine if we can get all-night climate control.
We'll try to do that. Yeah. I agree. That'd be really cool. Yeah.
All right, who's next?
Hello. Long-time fan, great guy. Just a question. How does the ICE industry look like for in the future?
Well, I don't think there will be an ICE industry long term. So, yeah. I mean, well, I guess there might be like a few things that are like, it's a like curious thing. Like, I mean, there's still like some steam engines made somewhere, but like they're just basically sort of quirky collector's items. I mean, that will be the future of the internal combustion engine car.
Hi, Elon, to your left here in the white Model Y. Ryan McCaffrey from the Ride the Lightning Tesla podcast. Curious about Cybertruck. It was interesting to see where you had it in on the battery technology front. I'm sort of curious what you see for it in the production front. Is its volume, trucks are so popular in America, do you see its volume equaling the 3 or the Y in the future? And also, is were you able to get Tesla is able to legally be sold in Texas as part of the Giga Texas deal?
Well, it's hard to say what the volume exactly would be for the Cybertruck. The orders are gigantic. So we have like, I don't know, well over 500,000 orders. I think maybe 600,000 or 600,000. That's a lot, basically. We stopped counting. So I think there's probably room for, I don't know, at least like a unit volume of like 250 to 300,000 a year, maybe more. Now we are designing the Cybertruck to meet the American spec, because if you try to design a car to meet the global, the superset of all global requirements, it basically, you can't make the Cybertruck. It's impossible. It really is designed for the American market, but this is the biggest market. Our North American market is the biggest market for pickup trucks by far, or large pickup trucks. And then I think for we'll probably make an international version of the Cybertruck that'll be kind of smaller, kind of like a tight Wolverine package. It'll still be cooler, but it'll be smaller, because you just can't make a giant truck like that for most markets. So yeah, but it's gonna be great. And I don't know. I think probably we'll be able to sell directly in Texas. We do pretty well right now, but it is a bit weird not being able to actually conclude a transaction in Texas. But it's got to be like, you know, a click on a server based in California. So, but weirdly, we can do leasing in Texas, but not selling. But hopefully that'll get cleared up in the future.
Yeah, Elon, great job with everything that you're doing. Thross Gerber from Gerber Kawasaki, your team's amazing. What I'm most curious about, these innovations are incredible, but on my drive up here, fully on autopilot for 400 miles, the entire state is brown, and this is ultimately about climate. Has there been some analysis done if all these things are achieved? What will its direct impact be on climate?
Well, I mean, I think it will have a very significant impact because it will stop the CO2 ppm from growing as it is every year. And I mean, I should say, like, I try to view the whole climate thing for, as a science question as much as possible. Science, you always question your hypothesis. Is it true? Is it not true? Or assign a probability to a given hypothesis. And I should say that my original interest in electric vehicles predates the climate issue. Like just when I was in high school, it's like I thought, man, if we don't figure out electric cars, the whole economy is going to collapse when we run out of oil. So it's like we better figure out electric cars and sustainable energy, or civilization is going to crumble. And then it was only kind of later that the significance of the climate risk became apparent. We were also able, using fracking and other types of technology, to access a lot more fossil fuels than previously thought, which is, helpful for lowering the cost of gasoline, but it's pretty bad for the total tonnage of CO2 that you could put in the atmosphere. It's now greatly beyond what people previously thought. So, but this is, as we were just going through this presentation, it's like it is a absolutely monumental task to accelerate the advent of sustainable energy. I mean, the entire global economy is still, more than 99% dependent on, or roughly 99% dependent on fossil fuels. So although electric cars kind of get a lot of press right now, they're still, and there's still very few, as a percentage of the total global fleet, is practically nothing. I would say, yes, less than 1% of the global fleet is electric right now. Because of 2 billion cars and trucks and whatnot in use. So there's a massive amount of work ahead, just insane, like hard to comprehend how much work is ahead to get the new vehicle production to be sustainable, to massively increase the amount of stationary storage, which is critical because renewable energy is intermittent. Wind and solar is intermittent. Sometimes the wind doesn't blow, and obviously the sun doesn't shine at night. So you got to have batteries, a massive number of batteries. So
it's hard to measure in direct impact, but it's an experiment that we shouldn't be performing, and the sooner we can sort of end the experiment, the sooner we can kind of move on in a fully sustainable way that is actually lower cost. I mean, I think the thing that people haven't fully internalized is once we do get to the 25K car, the ownership cost of that car is incredibly lower than the prior car. And then on the solar side and wind, with the cost of solar and wind coming down and with batteries coming down with them, the actual cost of energy on the grid is going down. So we're sort of moving towards a sustainable, lower cost future. So there's not really a sacrifice.
Yeah, that's true. It is a false dichotomy to say that it's either prosperity or sustainability. This is often used, by oil and gas to say like, oh, well, do you want people to lose their jobs? Do you want lower people's standards of living? Do you want to, make all these economic sacrifices, really, in order to have sustainability? And the reality, as Drew was saying, is that a sustainable energy is going to be lower cost, not higher cost, than fossil fuels.
Elon, quick question for you, right here in front. First, thanks for having everyone, and as telling a friend, the one company to go work for that's going to have the biggest structural impact over the next 10 years at scale, it's probably Tesla. So kudos to everyone at Tesla for what they've done to this point and going forward. The two questions for you, as you've looked at the auto and the storage markets, I know you've talked about it at kind of 50-50 long term, but it seems like a lot of the battery cost curve achievements that that you presented today really make some of these storage opportunities much more feasible over the next 5 years. And so I guess the first part of the question is, does your calculus upon learning and improving these things change on that 50-50 mix, or is there a role where storage becomes bigger? And then the second part of the question, with all these huge grand visions, who's going to be with Tesla from a corporate perspective accomplishing these things? Obviously, Tesla can't do it alone, but when you look at some of the traditional auto industry or power, et cetera, I don't see a lot of other Teslas.
Well, actually, so there's a lot of companies in China that I think are doing great work with electric vehicles and also with stationary storage. Although we don't see that much in the US yet, but I think probably we will in the future. I don't know. I mean, obviously, we're doing everything we can to encourage other companies to move to sustainable transport and also, make stationary storage batteries. We opened up, made our patents freely available. We really try to tell these companies, hey, you really need to do this or you won't exist in the future. But they don't believe it, So, I mean, we've talked until we're blue in the face. What are we supposed to do? But we really are hopeful that other companies will also do what we're doing, and that will make a sustainable future come sooner.
From a fundamental market size perspective, like we did the first ground up work to show the size of the market in terawatt hours, and they are roughly 50-50. 10 terawatt hours for transportation, 10 terawatt hours for the grid. And part of that is because the grid batteries, because when you're making a power plant, you're making a large investment, are 25-year assets or greater. If the grid batteries were 10-year kind of things, the grid market would be bigger. But because it's a longer duration asset, they're roughly the same size.
Thinking long term, is there any other segments that this new battery will be able to disrupt or electrify beyond just the initial Model 2 or cheaper sedan, like a boat, boring company Luke, plane, boat?
Where are you, Golly?
Are you
there?
What's up? Right here.
Okay, great. It's like ventriloquism here, It's like we just get the sound out of the speaker and you can't tell where the heck it's coming from.
Yeah, any hints, or is the Model 2 such a big deal because it decreases the cost of transportation that is really the disruption? Or should we get hyped that this new cost curve opens up different vehicle categories like a high passenger density bus, boring loop, boat, plane?
I mean, there are batteries in limited production right now that do exceed 400 watt-hours per kilogram, which I think is about the number you need for decent range, medium range aircraft. And I think our batteries will, over time, start to approach the 400 watt-hours per kilogram range as well. Yeah, I mean, I think over time we'll see all modes of transport, with the ironic exception of rockets, transition to sustainability, or to electric, basically. On the rocket front, what we're planning to do is about 80% of Starship is liquid oxygen, and we're actually already running a power line to be able to use wind power to create the liquid oxygen. So we're making some decent progress on sustainability on the rocket front, but there's just no way to have an electric rocket, and it's important for the future of life and consciousness that we become a multi-planet species. So got to keep doing that.
Hi, Elon.
Hello.
Josh Phillips here, retail investor. I have a question in regards to the lithium and nickel industries and the likely price spikes and shortages of high-grade materials the EV industry is likely to see if they don't act fast to address future supply. Tesla have clearly made the right moves that are necessary, but there's a real worry that the potential supply issues and price spikes will create a drag on the rest of the EV industry and therefore a drag on global EV adoption. What advice would you give to the EV and mining industries to quickly solve this looming hurdles? Because for a sustainable energy future, the spice must flow. Thank you.
Yeah, indeed. The spice must flow. The new spice. I don't know. I think the I'm not sure. I guess what we can try to like basically overdo it in cell production and perhaps supply cells to others. But we do see the fundamental constraint as total cell production. That's why we're putting so much effort into making cells and kind of reinventing, trying to reinvent every aspect of cell production from mining the ore to a complete battery pack. Because it's the fundamental constraint. We're not getting into the cell business because we, just for the hell of it. It's because it's the fundamental constraint. It's the thing that is the limiting factor for rapid growth. But we could certainly try to overdo it on cell production and perhaps sell cells to others. Although we are going at absolute top speed, so it's like it's not like we're holding it back. But I think like just making really efficient cars and that have low drag coefficient, low rolling resistance, efficient powertrains. I mean that's kind of what we've done in order to make iron phosphate still have a good range. So the iron phosphate face lower energy density solution, but there's while there are some limitations on the total amount of nickel produced every year, there's really no limit on the iron. There's so much iron, it's ridiculous. So you can really scale up iron phosphate, at a raw materials basis faster, more than you can nickel. But yeah.
And just to point out, when we were walking through this presentation, we intentionally separated all the different aspects. The benefits of structural battery apply to a iron-based cathode in the same way they apply to a nickel-based cathode. Yeah. So you get longer range iron-based vehicles, and also the silicon benefit can apply to the iron-based vehicles as well. So we can do a lot to extend the range of an iron-based vehicle, which is why it's a key part of the roadmap going forward. And then I invited Turner up here to talk about what the mining industry can do.
Yeah. Diversification on the cathode side is obviously massive, and EVs are all about efficiency. And so for the EV industry, for the vehicle industry, we need to see powertrain efficiency really increase at all other companies matching Tesla powertrain efficiency so that everyone can have that diversified cathode approach where LFP is used in medium range and even really make a 300-mile vehicle with LFP. And really the goal that we were trying to present here was a model for vertical integration, strategic vertical integration that a lot of different people can do. What we need to see is vertical integration that shortens the process path from mine to cathode. And what we're doing here is novel, and we're trying to push the industry in that direction. So we're presenting a model here that anyone can follow.
Yeah, in fact, if there's anything that you guys want to comment on, feel free to step forward and say something.
I think the key is to be smart about your chemistry choices, your materials choices.
Spoke louder.
Yeah, if you're smart about your materials choices, the spice will continue to flow. Yeah. You don't need to use the same kind everywhere, and it's about strategically planning it out. And for miners, I think we are incentivizing them quite a bit to ramp up their production.
Yeah, and actually we had good calls. Like they're all motivated. I think that they've been sort of sitting back being like, are you going to grow like crazy? And we're like, yeah, we're going to grow like crazy. And then I think this indicates we're going to grow like crazy, and that's what the miners want to hear, and then they'll go make the investments.
Hello, Elon. This is Ben Limpick. I'm a musician. I was wondering, does Tesla have any future plans to make partnerships with music companies like it has done with 10-cent games or things like that for you guys to actually kind of expand your services for artists and other types of creative people to get involved in producing content that can be part of the Tesla ecosystem, or so other people that do creative things can get involved with you guys?
Well, we don't. We haven't really thought about that much, but I suppose it's probably something we should think about. We will be providing a title on Teslas. So we're providing more music sources that people can choose from, and just generally trying to improve the entertainment experience in the cars. And I think actually, as we go to a more autonomous future, the importance of entertainment and productivity will become greater and greater. I mean, to the degree that if you're just basically sitting in your car, the car is fully autonomous and driving somewhere. It's sort of like being in a, being, you know, the car is essentially your chauffeur, and then the things that become important are, okay, well, let's have good entertainment, and you know, if you want to do some productivity stuff, then that actually starts to become much more important because you're no longer spending your attention driving the car. So it will be extremely important in the future.
Should we do some of the say.com questions? Okay. Should we do the second one?
Yeah, the first one I think we already answered. Like, if we're able to make enough cells, which we'll try to do, or we will supply other companies. It's definitely not an intentional effort to keep the cells to ourselves. If we can make enough for other companies, we will supply them. And we're trying to do, you know, the right thing for advancing the sustainable energy, whatever that is. So, vehicle to grid, we get asked that a lot. I think one of the things that's important to note is the vehicle to grid. It doesn't, unless you have a power cutoff. Like, you need to cut off your main supply to the grid. Otherwise, if you lose the power in your house, you'll basically just backflow energy to the grid. So just having a reversal in the power flow does not actually keep the lights on. You need a whole separate system to cut off power to the grid. And I think there's also the case that people really want the freedom to be able to drive and to charge at their house. And it's obviously really problematic if you know, you get to morning and your car, instead of being charged, it discharged into the house, and then you're sort of, okay, now I can either drive or use the battery to power my house. I think it's actually going to be better for people's freedom of action to have a power wall and a car separate, and then it's you know, everything works. You know, and you add that, you basically combine that with solar, either solar retrofit or solar glass roof, and local battery storage. So you basically become your own utility, and then the car is you know, can be charged also with solar. I think that's like the stuff that works. You know, that said, like, we can certainly do vehicle to grid. I think we can basically enable that with software in Europe or something, right?
Yeah. We are future generations of power electronics. We will be able to do this more or less everywhere from a like energy market participation perspective. But yeah, from a backing up the house, and it just so happens that the way the North American connectors are on all the cars in North America, it doesn't matter whether it's the Tesla connector or the connector that the other vehicles have, doesn't actually support powering your home. It's unfortunate. So you need an additional hardware to do that. But yeah, in the future, all versions of our vehicles will be able to at least do bidirectional power flow for the purposes of energy market participation. But even for that, it's important to remember that your car isn't plugged in 24/7. So it's kind of an unpredictable resource for the grid. It'll have a value, but it's not the same as a stationary battery pack.
Yeah, honestly, a vehicle to grid sounds good, but I think actually has a much lower utility than people think. I think very few people would actually use vehicle to grid, and we actually had with the original Roadster, we had vehicle to grid capabilities. Nobody used it.
Yep. How do we find the engineers to do everything we're saying?
How do we find the engineers to do all these things? Well, I guess we recruit a lot of engineers from all parts of the world. You know, I think Tesla has a good reputation for doing exciting engineering, and that tends to attract a lot of the top engineers in the world, because they know that their efforts at Tesla will really serve the greater good, and we're super hardcore about engineering. You know, Tesla is like first and foremost an engineering company. It's like hardcore engineering is what we do. Like the sheer amount of hardcore engineering done at Tesla is insane. And if you look at, say, there's various surveys done of engineering schools, where do you want to go? Like, what's your top choices? And actually, the top two choices last few years have been Tesla and SpaceX. So sometimes it's Tesla first, sometimes SpaceX first, but those are the two top ones.
Yeah, I mean, if you are motivated to solve some of these problems, which are the hardest problems in the world to solve, that really fundamentally enable the future we all need, please reach out.
Yeah, and
help us work on these problems.
Absolutely, and like you said, the battle is far from over. Less than 1% of the global automotive fleet has been converted to electric, and even maybe less than 0.1% of stationary storage has been done. So stationary storage has barely begun. Converting the global vehicle fleet to electric has barely begun. So there's still a massive amount of engineering work to be done at Tesla and other companies to accelerate this transition to sustainability.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
This is Jordan from Mark Asset Management. So you've talked about the importance of the factory, and you've mentioned the ground-up design process and a lot of the new things that you're going to be doing or started to do in Shanghai, Berlin, and Austin. Can you just maybe help us understand and quantify like how financially meaningful all of those improvements will be? And then given what you're trying to accomplish as a company, is it fair to assume that the vast majority of improvement will be given back to the customer in the form of lower prices?
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly we will try to give back as much as possible to the customers. It's not like, it's not like Tesla's profitability is crazy high. Our average profitability for the last 4 quarters is like maybe 1%. So just to be clear, it's not like, we're minting money. Our valuation makes it seem like we are, but we're not. We do want to try to make the price as competitive as we can without like losing money. And if you lose money, then if you keep losing money, you'll just die. So we have to. This thing called profit is just like we need to bring in more money than we spend, otherwise we're dead.
But affordability is key to how we scale,
Yeah.
right? Like the demand goes nonlinear as you reduce the price of the car.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to sort of separate the difference between affordability and value for money, or desirability of the product. So, for a lot of people, they want to buy a Tesla, they simply don't have enough money. We could make the car infinitely desirable, but if somebody does not have enough money, they can't buy it. Sometimes, people, kind of forget this. It's like, it's like people have to have enough money to buy the car. And just making a car super desirable but expensive does not mean they can afford it. So it's absolutely critical that we make cars that people can actually afford. Yeah. So I wish we
over
go
here
some of
now.
these things. Just scroll down or something. Oh.
When do you expect Tesla vehicles to beat ICE vehicles on initial purchase price? I think a way to answer that question is, in the classes of vehicles we sell today, we're already doing that.
Yeah, we're already pretty close. And then factoring in total cost of ownership, and the fact that electric vehicles require much less servicing, and are way cheaper to run. When you look at like total cost of ownership, and you can obviously lease a car. So if you just like lease a car or get a loan for a car, you've got your sort of monthly payment, and then your cost for either gasoline or electricity, and your cost of servicing, and the fully considered cost of an electric car is much less than a gasoline car of the same nominal purchase price. I mean, that said, and like maybe on the order of 3 years, when we can do a lower cost car, like a $25,000 car, I think that will be basically on par, maybe slightly better than a comparable gasoline car. So I think maybe it's on the order of 3 years-ish.
How have the technology advancements and increased vertical integration of battery manufacturing influenced your ability to improve the environmental and social impact of the supply chain? And I think, yeah.
I think we sort of have said that already.
Yeah.
Do you have some ability to scroll through this? Just scroll away.
We covered recycling.
Yeah. Well, just scroll until we've got stuff that we haven't covered.
We definitely covered that top
yeah,
one.
a lot of these things we've already answered, I think.
covered that. That one. I think we
literally just answered that.
Yeah. Oh, I saw a cathode durability question. Let's go to that one. Go down, go down, go down. Good technical question. Keep going. How are you going to address the cathode durability and cost environmental impact trifecta? Is this something you're going to leave the upstream supply chain to solve? No, I think we tried to answer that directly. I mean, we really are looking at not just what happens in the cathode facility, but like currently outside the cathode facility that should really be inside, and removing processes that shouldn't have been there in the first place, and the use of reagents that are just costly and not necessary, and removing a bunch of wastewater from the process.
Guys, is there anything you want to add to? Maybe we could like go through everyone and like maybe say what you're doing and say a few words. I don't know.
Sure. I just want to reiterate the fact that this is a massive problem.
Massive problem.
And it seems like Tesla's on its way and ahead, but we need everybody's help because it's everybody's planet, and we're not going to get to 20 terawatt-hours by ourselves. So please think about this carefully as it affects everybody. So let's get on it.
And obviously, if you care about solving sustainability and doing hardcore engineering, definitely come work at Tesla.
Yeah, we went through a couple of the manufacturing improvements, and it kind of looks easy when you put together a nice slide deck, but the challenges are like this. It's super challenging when you take materials out of the process, when you integrate processes together. You have to do a lot of things at once, and that's like this immense engineering challenge. And so, like, to appreciate that, like, you need, like, to get through this, we need, like, the best engineers we've got. And we've got this awesome team. I just want to shout out also to all of our team watching. Like, you guys are awesome. Like, you absolutely kicked ass putting this together. And, yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Tesla team. Totally agree.
Yeah, that's it. Like, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Rodney Westmoreland, managing the construction here at Tesla. What I would like to say is, one, shout out to the team. The team has been working effortlessly. A very, very tough project here for 24 hours a day, it seems like, around the clock to have this complete. The thing that sets us apart from a lot of other construction, we have a construction company here. The thing that sets us apart is that we're integrated in the manufacturing process. So every detail that comes from Drew's mouth is directly implicated into the system that we're building. That way, what would typically take 3 or 4 months to create a specification, our design team is working right with the manufacturing team to allow us to speed that process up tremendously. So.
Yeah, it's definitely a important part of the vertically integrated approach is to be able to design the factory around the equipment, in fact, together with the equipment, so that you can build the factory at lower cost and more quickly.
Yeah, I'm Scott. I focus on cell design. I think it's hard to put into words how inspiring this is. I've been at it for a long time with Tesla, and
yeah,
I really hope others do join us.
Since when, Scott?
Since 2005. Yep,
yes,
with many of you. But thank you. It. 6. Yeah, year before Drew, but who's keeping track? But I'm really stoked at what the team's been able to accomplish over the last, short period of time, about a year. It's been really an incredible transformation. I mean, hopefully what we've shown you inspires you to join us or join somebody else in the effort. And I couldn't think of a greater, more intelligent, more hardworking team to be working on with this problem.
Hi, Peter. I lead the manufacturing improvement team. And I guess the point that I would like to make is manufacturing improvements is like the accelerator. So like you think about the execution that Rodney talked about in terms of how fast we've been able to put together this factory, which is amazing and something that's been really incredible to be a part of. That's not enough. What we need to do is improve the manufacturing technology. That's the real accelerator. And that's what we're really focused on. Elon talks about it all the time, that really going and improving that system is what will enable us to get to the scale and the cost that we need. And then the other point that I would make is on the recruiting side, like it doesn't matter if you know about batteries. If you come from any industry, you can do something fantastic in the work that we're doing. We talk to people from industries that you wouldn't imagine. Like I talked to a guy who makes golf balls, and he has stuff which is really impactful for what we're doing. So, you know, if you're in any industry and you want to be, you know, impactful here, like come join us. It'd be great.
Hi, excuse me. Hi, I'm Tony. I've been working in lithium and cathode materials for almost 23 years now, and this is the most growth I've seen in a company. I've been here a little over a year and a half. We're hiring amazing people that are allowing us to leverage technology that most of the industry is struggling to achieve. So to answer the question, how are we going to do this? We are really advancing the materials manufacturing for cathodes and for lithium beyond what has been accomplished in the previous 20 years.
It's exciting.
Yeah, my name's Turner. Work closely with the team. I've worked a lot with everyone here, and on the cathode and upstream materials side, it's really important that everyone understand that this growth is coming. This growth is real. We are going to make all of these batteries, and everyone needs to grow with us. The entire supply chain needs to grow with us. And if you have an idea that simplifies anything in the supply chain, come talk to us, come work with us, and let's do it.
Any existing specification is wrong. Any existing
That's
manufacturing
always
method is wrong. Process equipment, it's wrong. It's just a question of how wrong.
Yes.
Quote
Exactly.
Elon Musk.
Yes, exactly. We're wrong. Just a question of how wrong. Just try to be less wrong.
So tell us how we're wrong and how we could do it better so that we can accelerate and improve as fast as possible.
All right. Well, I guess thank you everyone for coming. I hope you liked the presentation. Very exciting future ahead. You know, we're going to work our damnedest to transition the world to sustainable energy as quickly as possible, and your support and help is key to that success. So thanks again, super appreciated, and look forward to the next event. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, there we go. Goodbye.
It's
Elon.
time to drink. Everyone's honking. Drinking game.
Who knew that would be the takeaway from this event? Is the the drinking game. Look in the comments if you stuck around to the very end. Thank you for that. So let us know what you're thinking, and we will we'll start to get to your questions, your thoughts, and all those kind of things. Guys, okay, a lot to rip into there. First of all, Tom, you've been giving it some thoughts. First impressions.
So a lot to take in. I'm not going to dive too deep into the technical geek stuff. I think I have to watch that video 2 or 3 times to understand everything. And I am starting with a working knowledge of some of this stuff, and it was still a little above my pay grade. Maybe you guys absorbed it better. The 4680 cells are really what I want to geek out over and really do kind of a deep dive into. The use of silicon is really, really cool. I kind of expected Elon to talk about some kind of future vehicle, the $25,000 car, which is pretty cool. I just wish we had a little more clarity on that. Overall, you know, it was long, it was technical, but he packed in a lot of information in there.
Kyle.
Yeah, well, look, I just checked the stock market. It seems that this was maybe a little bit too technical for many of the analysts to understand and for many of the people. And I just spoke to my dad, who's one of the most knowledgeable people in the stock market that I know. And he said it's truly revolutionary, but it's a little too nerdy for people to get. I certainly loved some things that I saw. I think it was really cool, but it wasn't flashy. We saw no semi, we saw no roadster, nothing that really consumers can relate to or feel like they're driving. And we have our great colleague now, Dominic Yoni, who runs our weekly InsideEVs podcast. Dominic, what did you think about the presentation?
Wow. Well, man, I was so busy doing other things.
That says it all. It says it all.
You're busy doing other things?
It's really hard to... Well, I mean, it was like screenshotting all the images for the galleries that you see on all the articles coming up on InsideEVs. Yeah, I was like screenshotting and just, oh man, computers are all lagging out, and it's time for some hardware upgrades over here. I could do some what do you call these new batteries? Do you have the name for them? The size of
4680s.
No. Okay.
Yeah, 4680.
Yeah,
we need
that's
some
it.
4680s.
That's
Yeah.
Yeah, so the size is a little different than what we were talking about before, because we were talking about 54 millimeters wide. So yeah, that information seems to have been wrong. But overall, I thought we'd see more product. Like so the Model S Plaid is now available for sale on the site, and it's a good value price wise compared to. I think it's quicker than the Lucid Air, faster, but it doesn't have the luxury. So you're going to get awesome performance with the Lucid Air and the luxury, but you'll get even better performance with the Tesla Plaid. No?
But keep in mind, the Lucid hasn't, I know Tom was just about to go for it. Lucid hasn't talked about their tri-motor system. That comes tomorrow or the next day, sometime this week, I believe. And but what we cannot argue with is the price of the Plaid Model S. Now, I used to own a Model S, and granted, I bought it at a very steep discount because it was a press car from Tesla. But the sticker price was $164,000. This is $139,000, and it's way better, and it goes 520 plus miles on a charge. I mean, it's just amazing the value of this Plaid Model S.
I just wonder if they were originally targeting 500 miles, and then when Lucid came out with 517, Elon was like, get me 20 more miles or don't come back to work. You know?
Yeah.
Well, who knows if they even did it? They just put the number there.
Just like the car, like they did with Cybertruck. The car isn't out for a year. Just write the number.
We'll figure it out later.
Yeah.
So I was thinking originally that the Model S Plaid would have like a 200 kilowatt hour pack, but the 520 miles doesn't sound like 200 kilowatt hours. It's not that,
Right.
So,
Well, if Lucid's able to do it with a 113 kilowatt hour battery pack, we don't know what of that is usable or if that's the usable or gross capacity, but it's only 113 kilowatt hours. This is probably, let's just say 120, 125 kilowatt hour pack. That's what we've been rumoring for them to get into. And we don't know if this is the pack that uses the new 4680. Was that what they're called?
Yeah,
the
4680
cells. But I do have to say, before we get too technical about all this, I really enjoyed our drinking game in the comments. Every time they honked the Model Ys, we took a drink. I think if I got up right now, I probably couldn't walk. It was really fun.
It's a good thing I'm out of bourbon. I know that.
My goodness. Oh my goodness. So yeah, 520 is estimated. It's a good point. It's a good point on the Plaid. Okay,
so
go on.
So I was also a little disappointed we didn't see the Cybertruck or the Roadster. I thought there was going to be more vehicles showing up. Even at the beginning, he teased we're going to have some things afterwards, and I believe the stream ended, and there's just the Plaids for sale. I don't know. Were you guys expecting to see some Cybertruck action, or?
I definitely was expecting to see the Cybertruck because I mean that's the vehicle that everybody is just so excited about these days, and I didn't, I would have bet anything that thing was going to roll out on the stage and we were going to hear some kind of, update on where they are on that. So that's definitely a little surprising.
Is it? No, I was surprised that he didn't give the number. He was like, we've got more than 500 or 600,000. He was like, and then he used not ridiculous, but he was like, it's a crazy big number. And you think, for someone who is so, to the point of not being able to communicate his intelligence sometimes because of the four brains all working at once and the mouth at the same time, for someone who is so detail oriented, like that, I didn't understand that. He knows the number. He knows the number.
Yeah, he knows
so
the
he
number.
didn't.
Yeah.
So he was thinking, don't say the number. I thought it was a little bit weird. But literally no mention. They passed up opportunities to talk about the structural, the rigidity of their future battery packs. And he said, because if you get a a convertible car. It's actually stiffer than if you had the roof on. And now I was also typing and making notes, and so maybe I missed it, but that was an ideal opportunity to say, and this is how the Roadster becomes the best car in the world. And they were like, so yeah, let's move on. And you think that was an open goal, just shoot and score. So I thought it was a little odd from those perspectives of just they didn't really take every advantage that they had to score points and to drive it home to the millions of people watching. I thought it was strange from that perspective.
Can we talk about this big sell for a second? Because I think it's super interesting. And we had a conversation, I can't remember if it was on our podcast this past week, but we definitely all talked about it at some point, where by going with the tabless cells, we weren't sure how they were going to go about doing this. And what they did is they've increased to 12 points of connection across the active material. And I just think that's so incredibly useful, and we're going to see not only higher regen because of this, higher power output, but higher charging speeds, et cetera, et cetera. What else do you guys expect that we're going to see from this benefit that we can sort of keep to layman's terms, something that maybe people can digest a little better?
I mean, lighter weight, lower cost, more higher rigidity of the whole structure, since the pack is structurally integrated with the frame. Yeah, Martin.
I thought that they were going to stack the efficiencies to give a final number. So as they were working their way around the pie chart, and they were saying, well, actually using the dry electrode is 14% or gives 14% more range, and actually the way that we will mine lithium and take it straight to the process is another whatever that percentage was. And I thought at the end they were going to have like a big number, which is, and it makes the Model 3 go from this to this, and it makes the Model S go from this to this. Now, that could Osborne their product, and that could mean people go, oh, well, if there's a new one, I'm not buying one now. But it seemed far enough away in the future that they could have gone for a big number that the mainstream press and just everyone could have got hold of, which is, I guess the Plaid does that with 520 plus, but still, I hope that it was, I don't know, the whole presentation felt a little bit, it was definitely a scientific presentation, but at the end I feel like they needed to say, and it means this,
right,
for the rest of us, for us mere mortals, and they didn't. They were like, oh, and Q&A, which was a little strange.
So I have a message from my dad, and I'd like to share it because it's the wrap-up show. We should share what everyone's thinking. My dad said it will take time to digest the tech and relate to the real-world use and stock price. This is just not simple stuff. He said, hence the lack of curb appeal and impact delivery, hence the down. But Trojan horse, there is major substance here that will take time to truly understand, as Tom mentioned. And that is what I think we're running into. It was almost so techy and like no flashy at all. They were just kind of like, here's the Plaid, whatever. That it's just, it's not exciting for people. Conversely, I think Lucid did a really nice job of explaining their tech in a way that, let's say, 70% of people could understand, but then really excited everyone who watched their presentation. It was polished. It was the exact opposite of what we just saw. So that's my dad's take on everything.
That's cool. It's a good take. It's a good take.
Well, we just had a comment from a guy, Hargreaves. It's battery day, not car day. So
that's a great point.
That kind of sums it up. Right. They were here to talk battery, and that's what they did. And guess what? That's kind of boring. It's technical, it's geeky. But for the people that appreciate this stuff, I think they enjoyed it. That's probably not the masses. But, rather than knocking Tesla, I'm going to give them a little credit for not just saying, oh, yeah, we've got these awesome batteries, 20% better. Yeah. It's going to reduce costs, going to reduce weight, it's going to do this. No, they actually went and explained how they're doing it. Now, that's not going to appeal to everyone. But I give them credit for kind of, pulling the curtain back and showing us why we should be excited about this. Yeah, a lot of people aren't going to be excited. They like the flashy stuff, but hey, I give Tesla credit for going out and, taking the time to give us a little lesson here on battery tech.
Did you guys already talk about the $25,000 car coming in 3 years? Because that's a big deal.
What was the date? Did they put a date on that?
Again, 3 years.
Was it 3 years away?
Yeah.
So again, people were calling it the Model 2 to try and, maybe get a rise out of Elon or just a confirmation. But $25,000 car is I hate that phrase, game changer. But it really is a car from Tesla. Hey, actually, Dominic, I don't know if you caught any of our pre-show, and it was one of the points that I raised, is that I think Tesla will struggle the more they become a company that sells a $25,000 Econobox and a $150,000 Model S Plaid and a $250,000 Roadster, and also these very cheap cars as well. And I think when their range is smaller and it's all, between 40 and 80 or 40 and 100 grand, you can focus. And I think there's going to be more that are chipping away because the cheaper you get in the market. So, my Renault Zoe has a 41 kilowatt hour pack. There's a new one with a 50 kilowatt hour pack, but still it's like a 15, 20 grand car. Like, I don't care what I know what batteries are inside it because I'm a super nerd, but I don't care what batteries are inside it. I want to know how far is it going to go? How do I charge it? So you end up going further into that market of people who don't care about their cars like we care about cars. They're just, the lease will come to an end and it'll, what have you got? Oh, electric. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Oh, it's a Tesla. Yeah, that's fine. I don't care. So that becomes harder for them to maintain that brand, that halo around the brand when they're making cheap cars, but they've got to achieve their mission. So, hugely important, but also a challenge at the same time as well. Just hear some really lovely comments. I don't know if you guys want to take any of these on, try and flash these up.
Well, I have loved to interact with everyone today. It's been so much fun to have everyone commenting on this live stream. We should do this for every Tesla presentation.
Yeah. It would be nice to have the podcast live too, really. But okay, that's another thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice to get that feedback. I wish they'd have discussed improvements to regen and batteries and supercapacitors. Yeah, because supercapacitors were part of the Maxwell thing. They were working on it. And whilst Elon
downplayed that.
He didn't throw shade, but he was like, yeah, that was version 1. We're on version 4. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And one of the things that another thing Elon downplayed that John was asking about on the pre-show was about vehicle to home. Elon kind of really threw some cold water on that. It was like, you know what? Buy our power walls. You don't really want to use the car battery to do that. So not totally surprising to me because, as I mentioned earlier, that I've had discussions with people from multiple companies, and they all kind of, back off a little bit and say, we're not so sure we want to let you use our battery to power your house. So it's not surprising that Elon kind of said, yeah, I don't know if we're going to do that. Just buy a power wall and you'll be fine.
And to their point about regen as well with supercapacitors, think about this. Taycan, which is using pretty much off-the-shelf technology, can do 265 kilowatt regen in the wet. That's getting into ABS. We don't need supercapacitors for extreme regen. So I'm not so sure what they're getting out of this Maxwell deal, especially after this little downplay of the dry coating technology today. That was really a shocker to me. I expected them to be leveraging that and really loved that technology a lot more than they seem to, because we talk about it all the time on our podcast.
Wasn't that the part of the whole the whole section of is removed now, the solvent? That's what the Maxwell technology does, doesn't it? It kind of takes that whole step away.
Well, there's no drying process, so rather than having to have tons of space to dry the cell, they've made it into like a powder form, which I thought was more of the way it had been described before today was the dry cathode technology was more like a bubblegum kind of paste, but the pictures they had on a loop was literally like it looked like some hot chocolate powder. So that's super interesting. How much of today will only be understood in 3 years' time? Like, because it was so deep. right?
It was very deep.
Was today the start of the death of combustion cars for the mainstream?
Look, they did not go into anything with charging infrastructure. In real world use cases, they didn't really go into that. All we really are getting is less expensive vehicles that hopefully will have a longer life, but not how we're really going to use them in day-to-day scenarios. Obviously, the four of us, we live with electric cars. We all own them. I road trip them everywhere. Tom's road tripped. We can do this. But it wasn't really about living with an EV. I don't think this is going to make a huge impact on day-to-day living within the next 3 years per se, because there's probably nothing that this $25,000 brand new car can do. You can already go buy a used Model S for 25 grand, by the way, or less. So what's stopping you from doing that if you like a $25,000 car? That's what I'm not totally feeling.
If you buy a 5-year-old Tesla Model S and something breaks on it, then it's out of warranty, or however many years it is
I get
out of
that
warranty.
point.
So that's why I would not buy it, because I couldn't afford to buy the used parts for it unless I can go to a junkyard and pull it off myself. Yeah.
Right. Pull a rich rebuilds on that Model S. I totally understand. I get that.
So there was a 56% number offered, which was the overall cost per kilowatt hour, and we know it's around 100, and we know the most expensive.
I think they're at $100, a little less per cell anyway, right now per kilowatt hour at the cell level now.
And then again, Dominic, John joined us on the pre-show, but one of the points that I was making to him and the guys was about how this was going to be a presentation of two halves almost. And I think it kind of ended up like that, because they were talking about two different things. On one hand, the use of materials which are abundant, so the lithium-ion phosphate cells, the LFP cells, and Drew was saying, actually, even though the energy density is less, we think we can bring that up to the point of using it in our cheaper cars. And then at the same time, they were talking about 400. No, they didn't. They were somebody else. They were saying that they're there for aviation, but they were talking about improvements to energy density. And I think there were a few things on the table today, and just the way they presented it means, well, as like you said, Tom, I'm gonna have to go back and watch that a couple of times to fully understand it.
What do you guys think about how the presentation went over on sort of a high level basic, starting with the shareholders meeting, which everyone thought was a total bore? Tesla's getting reamed by the people calling in. It was awful. First off, their sound messed up the entire beginning. And then, then they went to the battery day, and like all I wanted to see was like a Cybertruck just come flying onto the stage, flames everywhere, big drama, and there was nothing like that. And yeah, I get we were talking about batteries, but that was such a mistake, I think, to start with the shareholders meeting. They should have done that either a different day or after battery day, or just not even. It was bad. No one liked it. We had the whole comments. Not one person was like, yeah, shareholders meeting.
Right. I mean, that's where a lot of shareholders, have a chance to bring up their grievances and try to get things changed within the company culture. They're not really invested maybe in they have not ulterior motives for being an investor. I mean, some of them made good points, and some of them made, I'm not sure, not so great points, because I don't think they had a good grip on the reality of the situation, like was say with the cobalt in the Congo, because I know they're pretty rigorous about sourcing that and getting their cobalt from ethical sources. So anyway, so they would have more Cybertruck, more flames, less complaining from activist shareholders. Yeah.
So the plug seeker asked a good question. What do we think? I know he's been here all night.
Yeah,
Good
well,
job.
he's going to have to pay us for this advertisement we've given him now.
or we should just bring him on the podcast next week.
That's what we should do. We should just have him on.
Yeah, we should use him.
Only if he wears that like cloak thing,
Yeah, I love that. It's like the Star Wars with the lightning. So anyway, so he asked, what do we think that the battery size and range would be appropriate for say a 25,000 mile car? I'll throw out, 50 kilowatt hour battery, 200-mile range. I think for a $25,000 car is really today all you can expect, but the car's not coming today. So if let's say it comes in 3 years, you might get a 75 kilowatt hour battery pack and a 275-mile range in 3 years, especially with this next generation of battery cells. So that's what today, and that's what I would expect in 3 years. What do you guys think?
I think 300, because Elon did that strategic tweets, didn't he? Of 300's the new minimum.
Mm-hmm. I know he said that, but that's what I would expect if it was today.
Today,
I wouldn't. That's why I said today and in 3 years. And I guess I'll say 75 kilowatt hour battery and say 300 miles, not 275 in 3 years. But I don't think you can expect more than that for $25,000 and still be profitable.
That's a good point.
I think tomorrow. Speaking of that comment, Tom, I totally agree with your predictions on this 50 kilowatt hour for 25 grand. Tomorrow is ID4. It'll be really interesting to see how Volkswagen Group's going to be able to get their pricing down because this is a global car. It will also have U.S. production in Chattanooga. So I'm very interested to see their pricing. Sorry, Dominic, to interrupt.
No, that's good. That's fine. That's 2 years from now. They'll be doing the Chattanooga production, but they'll source it from Germany before that.
Right. Yep. We'll get them for Germany. Yep.
Yeah.
There was another thing as well in the presentation when they were talking about the Cybertruck, and we found out recently the Cybertruck is US only, which is I imagine news to everybody.
Yeah.
Not in the US.
I commented that I have a friend who wants one in Switzerland so bad. So sorry to Lars, you're not getting one.
But
he can get the small one. He can get the baby one.
But wasn't it weird that Elon said you can't design a car that you can sell around the world? And I was thinking, you make four of them already.
Right, but the full-size pickup trucks, like full-size pickup trucks.
Yeah, but he said you can't design a car that suits all global markets. You can't design one car and sell it everywhere. So we're going to make it for North America. I'm like, well, you can. You can, because you don't make a different Model 3 Y, S3, X, and Y for different markets. Anyway,
yeah, literally every Ford.
They're global cars. Anyway, correct me if I'm wrong. So yeah, Drew said at the beginning, one of my notes that I made, we have a plan to halve the cost per kilowatt hour. And then as we watched, that came true. They talked about the energy density and the thermal management as well. 5 times more energy, 16% more range, 6 times more power. I was surprised how many they've made. He says we've made tens of thousands of these cells. So It sounds like they've been cracking on already.
I mean, they said the pilot line itself was making 11 gigawatt hours over a year, or will be by the time it gets up in a year's time.
Right, just the pilot, and then they were going to do 200 gigawatt hours for their main production plants. Is what they were targeting. That's a lot.
So
wasn't it 100? Wasn't it 100?
What's the Gigafactory 1 do? 35?
Well, we don't know because last we heard Elon was complaining. This was a long time ago that Nevada wasn't up to the installed capacity wasn't up to what it should be, and he kind of half blamed Panasonic. And then we heard the news recently Panasonic were putting a few $100 million into expanding it, and you don't do that unless you're at capacity. So I would presume it's mid. We haven't had an update on that, but I'm putting 2 and 2 together. Could be wrong, but the fact that Panasonic are putting more money into Nevada to expand production, unless it was maintenance. No, it wasn't. It was to expand production. That they must have hit installed capacity, which is mid-30s. So
right. So think about that. So that huge Giga 1 factory out there in the desert is doing only 3 times what this little pilot production line is doing.
And they said that they will make 100 gigawatt hours of cells supplemental to what we'll be buying from our suppliers. And that was it. That was their first goal. So that's 3 times Nevada making it themselves, and that's going to be on top of everything they're buying. Which is
also that to produce a terawatt hour of battery cells now will be the same. You will use less space than what currently takes to make 150 gigawatt hour of cells.
That's massive.
I mean that's a massive reduction in production line. That's incredible.
Sean has a point. If they've made tens of thousands of them, are they putting them in cars?
Yeah, they can't be just stacking up them, right?
Yeah, I mean, where do you put them?
Cybertrucks. or energy storage. Can they sell these in
They can't
product
sell
now?
it. They can't. Nope.
Okay.
Well, it's a thicker cell, right? It's 48 millimeters tall versus the 28 millimeters in length that we currently have. So if you're living around Silicon Valley, just look for Model S's and X's that have a little lip underneath them and send us some pictures of these mules driving around.
Well, I was thinking like power walls or other energy storage, like large scale energy storage.
Yeah, but those are much less rough on a cell. Really, cars are pretty hard on battery packs and cells specifically. And then the second life will be cells. So it's possible that they're starting with stationary energy storage. But for them really to test these things, they have to go into moving vehicles because they get huge discharge rates, huge spikes of charge rates by region and the 250 kilowatt version 3 supercharging. So that's where you really push it to the limit.
Yeah, and I think what Elon said at the beginning of it, when when he said this, and I thought this took a turn, is he said their current pilot process works most of the time, works kind of well most of the time, and I'm thinking, hang on, Battery Day was meant to be in March or April, and now we're almost October, and I was expecting a car to drive out in that gap they left between the stage and the front row of cars, and he's like. And here they are powering a car. And he goes, they kind of work most of the time, but we've got about 3 years of work to do. And you're like, just don't do Battery Day today. Because I know the share price is down. What is it in after hours at the minute? It's down 7%, and people are losing it online that it's down so much. But,
it's up so high right now, whatever.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. But pre-split, it's still like crazy high. But it's one of those things that I just thought it was going to be more finished. It was going to be more, and here it is. Here's a power wall. It's got them inside. Here's a car. It's driving it. And there was none of that. It was like, well, here's what we've got. It's going to be, ready.
Yeah, I mean,
ready
they actually have a working Plaid Model S that they just ran at 100 minute 30 seconds at Laguna Seca. That is a fast lap. Man, that is the fastest electric lap that I know of.
That was quick. It flashed up quick. Did you get a screenshot of that? It flashed up so quickly.
No, but it was 1:30, and they think they can shave 3 seconds off. But just spending time at Laguna Seca, anything under a 1:50 is like, wow, you're moving.
Yeah.
And so for a 1:30, you're like ripping it. It's great.
And they said that they expect to be able to shave 3 seconds off of that, and that would be the fastest lap time of any production vehicle. So they must be within 3 seconds of the production vehicle record, right?
Right, we should look it up, but they said that it'll be faster than any 2-door or 4-door. It doesn't matter what it is, production vehicle.
Yep.
Right.
That's going to be pretty interesting. We'll test that here at Inside EVs. We have our own track in-house, and we'll be putting it around, drifting it, of course. So stay tuned to our YouTube channel for that.
I've just found I've just paused the. I've watched it back on my second screen. I've just paused it. Less than 9 seconds, quarter mile, more than 1,100 horsepower. And they flashed that up quickly, and then it disappeared. So, in other words, what did Lucid do? Backspace, add new numbers, publish.
And then Lucid tomorrow or the next day.
Tomorrow Lucid will be like less than but Tesla are clever. They've said less than 9 seconds. They've not said the number. So
right, Tesla is really smart here because even though Lucid they said 517 miles, but we think we can do more. So this is going to be really interesting. It's the battle of the two Silicon Valley companies here. I love this because I love seeing technology pushed as far as it can go, regardless of mass market price. I certainly get that as a mass market appeal, but for me, I like the cream of the crop. I like to know what are we really pushing here? And right now it's Tesla and Lucid neck and neck going back and forth. And it's super crazy that Tesla even has someone to compete with here.
Remember the good old days when it was Tesla versus the Taycan?
Oh yeah, just like come on. We had to and that was a stretch. Now it's true competition.
Yeah. Well, look, it's Wednesday for me. It's still Tuesday for you, and on Friday we've got to do a whole podcast again and not say the same thing. So you know what? It's just been an amazing way to do an event because I've been able to process in real time with you guys and get your takes have been different to mine. So thank you very much for your time. It's been, what are we coming up to 4 hours now? So that we should probably knock it on the head and say thank you to everyone watching.
I just want to
Yeah,
throw.
and
I just want to throw
for
out one
those who
number.
don't know, sorry, you can go, Dominic. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just going to say this is our typical podcast weekly panelist right here.
Oh, it is, yeah. So before we go, I just want to point out that in 2013, Steve Rapp on the Mission Motors R electric motorcycle did a lap in a minute and 31 seconds, which was a minute 31.3, which is a crazy fast lap at that time. So they're beating that. So that's that. It's pretty
And
impressive.
before we cut out, I just want to tell everybody watching that we have at least 5 or 6 articles on today's presentation already up on InsideEVs. So if you missed out on some of the stuff or you just want to get a recap, swing over to InsideEVs and check out the articles we had. The whole team was all hands on deck today, pushing the stuff out as soon as it was being spoken. So take a look at what the articles have to say about what went on tonight.
And I think I need that. I think I need that analysis, that just that space to read what other writers have written, to even understand this Tablis, like Stephen's done at the Tablis design story here, and it's like even that was so quick. But hey, we've got time. We've got time to understand it. That was good fun.
I just want to say I'd like to thank everyone for showing up, and I hope we will see you on Friday morning. Friday afternoon.
Yes, yeah. Make sure you tune into the YouTube channel as always, and yeah, you've got a good point. Good point, Tom. We should do this live again, even for the podcast. Should be live, and then we can bring in some of those comments that we had. So thank you to everyone for watching. We'll catch you on Friday.